Sorry, but
I hit all my debate docs. Each doc.
I'm not. I'm actually conflicted from judging you.
No, I didn't this one. Do you have a Celsius?
Yeah, but I can go get one.
Yeah, can you come over?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I've been involved in debate now for over 38 years. My sister came to watch the debate this last round for the first time.
Wow.
She and her boyfriend got through the first. They're both elementary teachers.
Oh, Lord's work.
No.
I sent the one.
Wait, I'm gonna move this against my left. Hold on.
Put it in the corner of the table.
Oh, this is, sorry.
Yeah.
Here, I don't know what you're.
Still trying to get it.
Sorry.
You okay?
I just got it. I mean,
Got it.
cool, got it.
1, 2, okay, green.
Division 22 news density has been low for decades because of sustainable opposition. In the 21st century, when you use your house, your representation of holy units, 2075 copy week. Every single metric just increase worker represented units, that's what it annually decided to how we can live a lot of belief in the right organized belief we can live 100 UOP worker. And we're constantly keeping units over becoming units that ensures mass work stoppages and strikes worker dissatisfaction. This number calls hydroline 25 races, strikes stagnation followed by 16 for when practice social media connected with supporting over the units 30 recorded 30. Summer 24 I'm just with a code distribution dissatisfaction stoppages to store global supply chains. This 24 supply chain for back over copy for both local industry authorities industry integrates efficiency effect manufacturing agriculture sector spoilage energy delay effectually stability new sources of medicine application rate because many delays the threat alone precipitates vulnerabilities in SCNs specifically semiconductors and energy industry the process of collective bargaining close labor strife ensuring industrial peace and labor management cooperation a UG and 24 industrial action and CB will sugar CB must be actually the common CB settlement your trust party CB method by dispute settlement through here you actually affect industrial peace essential source partners and confrontation process industrial mutual justice associated with membership and less likely affiliation of more disputes and free industrial relations as subject relationship supply chains cascade global extinction can 25 faced with interconnected the world can be facing disruption constant start with the planet permanent life dependent working together for organization polycars and coffee energy food water and air budget consideration depletion of source toxin the number of research overship here much knowledge global governance will lead to become locally the many systems supply chain substances what other fail financial systems lead to political need to great ability percent unrest disruption undermine cooperation division interaction food production be affected by disruption input affordability kitchen energy disruption nutrition supply more impact for loss in transformation especially in the region of according to supply chains breakdowns fuel tensions in every hotspot nuclear renewal 25 concerns regarding the global economic relationship including nuclear discussion the regional conflict global channel the need for C plus market company overseas export weakening Indian preparedness and which are affecting European Asian company was military retrieve stretching military resources the middle trade country was see delays operation increase cost of reduce access to good causing shortages in your military bases, diplomatic mission, diplomatic maritime policy, fragile state, natural flow goods, essential media, stability, trip points, and geopolitical uncertainty, economic disruption, aftershock, during the diplomatic alignment power, militants and split states, unprepared for hybrid conflicts, adversarial unions, strangle manufacturing, the rest of the Paglushi, 20 strikes were constituting manufacturing wage higher the rest of the countries, offering negative decisions to stopping deployment, the stoppage of cross-border manufacturing for wage premium fell significantly while the unionization manufacturing higher workers stopping about attack adversarial labor conflict, lower investment manufacturing shift opposite to regional cost job strikes prompting manufacturers simply loss of competitive industry eviscerates deterrence. It makes all other checks ineffective. Johnson and 24 diplomatic station equity new incentive to deterrence fund industrial individual level replenishment of official conflict rights. When deterrence fails to respond with nature to strike the production industry make negotiations heat military. The effective trade stability is weakened by the industrial channel could be successful. The Pacific contention stopping conflict escalation of speech to industrial the center deterrence. Specifically, they throttle military supply to Leonard 25 Lockheed part of labor on this of MIC 4001 strike 3000 against probably F-35 2500 summary effective 33 Boeing affecting military aircraft having a movement of crisis Pentagon allies demanding the defense company Republic of America running short of missiles. Defense companies replace union members with temporary workers. Devastating national security. Elliott and 14 strikes less 10 years Lockheed over temporary worker. But after the contrary reason short severe expertise security relations because more people suppose the sensitive of Russia China revisionist failure to deter their ambitions triggers existential wars that drag in America. Beckoning 25 to go to Russia work the entire state the power base or territory UK control Russia ability to remote future offensive great power early stop Germany Japan not for sure like yes military Germany Japan nuclear break and no code concept super high chains and alliances of power nation in Moscow China's eco shaking of Russia linear offensive realism issue plus 25 G and follow ruthless offensive strategy country offensive realism expand military request for exactly China been doing GSI regime concept applying to foreign policy we're building myths of strategic opportunity to visit the US future Russia mission combat with partnership advantage to its regulation employment regulations impose burdens and compliance costs kitchening and 6 compliant involved economy skill every business for monitoring worker keeping small business includes entry small business related to coordinate large business related to work compliance and factor available business to start encourage small business for innovation of software regulatory system that require large investments specifically labor law regulations are particularly complex and the cost incurring store and 18 legal regulations incur monitoring compliance and knowledge begin to determine whether work supply fix on small business for first work digital jobs to factor rules and scientific work apply to continue to university their critical supply by lack of transparency and labor law compliance costs and regulatory complexity industry consolidation across tech ag and finance and 25 large company continue to cost effect structure for social elimination GDPR for clean example take market concentration increase capacity create lots of market GDPR listed product financial regulation policy for loss and that's you can make face on favorite like a skill absorb cost large people doesn't never decline accelerate limit activation just dynamic spend a compliance issue secret activation can you check your show this dynamic crypto building extensive compliance with having license requirement for favorite established players ag consolidations collapses export stability and crushes rural economies helping the 24 monopoly control to the rise higher pricey fertilizer machinery cost coming monopoly control means a food system for supply chain rural communities consolidations but there's devastating well the towns hollow out well seconded to how border leaving empty servants and shrinking tax bases resilient ag exports underpins global stability and that underpins societal resilience to all expats in it and 25 geopolitical instead of release surrounding just made a food service that use security trade especially global supply chain African security composition to Suez Canal Malacca completely rebel with the emerging one with the river and the turbulence take less community to the social political risk conflict and migration food security opening for terrorists and adversaries credibility and security influence transmitter issue conflict resource population necessity stability military capacity military fragile safety global security China accepted to be our masters declining leadership cautious coordination weaken the US face of market volatility pending buying export restriction destability global markets external security trust unrest for food security food in the powers of economic growth state liability national security regional stability in our friends of the US leadership essential to mitigate effect changing security dynamics bank competition ensures diversified risk mitigating financial stocks 14 competition long list of benefit efficiency and financial service more efficient lower rate cost security competition encourage benefit take on diversity risk making system less fragile shock industry competitive environment associated with hard systemic fragility financial collapse causes extinction Victoria in 26 collapse rates use precipitation cascade global independent system collapse create remote US center finance collective initiability to influence dollar China position the benefit of resource software reallocation capital investment stability capital migratory stable governance demonstrate capacity fund defense maintain business oversee operation modern procurement readiness ability to expand investment enhancing influence collaboration toward work exactly competition over energy water food mineral league cyber EW it's also force multiplier fiscal security cyber one league collaboration global governance IMF WTO underbench credibility governance consistency increased competition protection is not like legitimate secret vulnerability to dollar stability alternative currency investment diversity contain ability to finance the fiscal risk incentive polarization populous force original marketing ensure migration responded to this location australian recalibration global order trying to create multiple architecture version increase in peak global coordination and climate change epidemics the plan solves Corbett and 24 no commentating search no right should be waivable waiver general greater bargaining law migration consideration having part anti discrimination fundamental to trade of employer willing to be waiver to be free of lawsuits they or other burden employer willing to change terms of engagement privacy rights or coordinated Congress has fallen behind the possibility of creating waiver by Congress has a lot of purchase federal level procedural protection in the form of bargaining to achieve the laudable goals of hard workers trade and give them the greater voice. It gives employers an incentive to permit unionization, solving economy-wide consolidation. 20 a union is capable of creating more flexible workers employee with non-resistant unionization, training unions as just possession to ensure the minimum wage Another 10 million student employees subject well and waivable federal minimum service strong economic incentive be favored toward union representation would give them an advantage over non-union competitor employer system as a proper collective agreement giving the unions a foothold. Thus, the plan the United States federal government should substantially strengthen collective bargaining rights for workers in the United States by establishing that they supersede workers' contrary statutory interests. That solves and permits workers and employers to bargain below the federal floor. Cast 20 give worker employer control and expand the scope of rating policymakers and to be departments that regulators and other has been a client absent representation employer taking market outcome employer got also pressure markets move from offering counter offer. Only unions overcome information gaps, prevent free riding, and then waive strategically. Schwab and 12 solution is the one free ride that all collective union. And the waiver rider because they're CB unit without the union riders escalate judgment work individual. And the worker hopefully free ride unit avoid free rider unions more info to make informed decision LRA. And the commands get info unions like personal investment reduce cognitive error unions and organ power give and take it the CB favor the union broker rights keep rights out worker value and trade of benefits. Advantage 3 is voice. The plan empowers workers and then encourages expanded voice and governance. Only union reform moderates employer opposition. 24 waiver right to be unrepresented employer representation waiver rights expanded rights waiver only union more employees mutual benefits and become supportive union organized waiver rights increase representation force participation force worker and then voter workers to not know the rights to do not result in force waiver they become variable and then shifts and empower workers institutionally recognized channels for worker input facilitates morale and productivity while preventing bureaucratic rigidity. Result in 21 labor major relation partner worker expanding community labor return workers of not affairs strategy for benefit hierarchy innovation engagement and delivers on global competitive business leaders are competitive and employers cooperative solution for harsher legal solution handed over for manager federal laws or obstacle to solution. Only the direct input into companies gets all bond in 23 units plus a productivity method express opinions can allow for manager and official hospital relation work plus employer directly influence company decisions. The plan transform unions and then cooperative arrangements that are productivity enhancing cast and 18 governors increase cost protection I mean higher cost of balance must be struck by liberty to take not prevents their own agreements market card own agreement productivity stabilize debt to GDP ratios acting at 19 productivity next step manageable productivity related to higher GDP income 30% productivity institutionally number of income reduce debt to GDP from 65 extinction from 25 government spending for economic some of the threat market accidents for small the future tech upset to would kill most crops disease contagious to lead to engineered disease both leaks infect humans. Marked that card. Mark Schulman at infect humans.
Get the.
I
haven't gotten the point yet.
I just
Actually, let me take 1 second for the sorry. The agency defense because it does something. The last card takes this. Yeah. Cool. 6 seconds. That's 9:54. Okay. Across.
Yep.
Okay. Advantage 2. What regulations are overburdensome on companies?
So Kitchling says labor is especially burdensome, and then and store.
So like what,
just
what
like
labor
it
laws?
obviously depends for different companies. Some companies say that like wages is one. Another one is like privacy and workplace safety. There's like those are the ones that I think are specifically
There's a
listed.
lot of like internal like procedural compliance things, like due diligence things, all those.
Wait,
sorts of
due
things.
diligence is not legally required. Like, what are you talking about?
No, there's just like a ton of industry-specific regulations on companies that are burdensome and complex because they have to
kind of just
hire
like
like
generally.
armies of compliance.
I'm asking for
officers to make
specific,
sure that
you know,
they're-
internal link cards that say that these regulations are causing these companies to be
Well,
hurt.
they're
Like,
like the thesis, the advantage is that regulatory systems are complex and they're burdensome, and there's too many of them.
so all these
Kitchling
experts don't know for most.
no, Kitchling and Store lists some, like privacy is one, different monitoring and record keeping and reporting ones. But like generally, all labor
Okay,
regulations are complex.
The first advantage is your argument that the plan would increase union density.
Well, we don't think we have to increase union density to solve, but we do think that we make unions less adversarial, particularly in cases where the process of unionization is ongoing, i.e. where workers are organizing and going on strike now. We think those places are becoming increasingly militant and adversarial. The plan
Which evidence
decreases
says
adversarialism in that process.
so? The Hyderly evidence seems to be your uniqueness card for strikes. It mentions like maybe cumulative like 33 major work stoppages. Like, where do you think you have evidence saying that in the future there will be more? Enough
One,
to
we
cover all
read
the-
ones that are, we read evidence that's specific to our internal link about military production. So like it's those workplaces are particularly important. 2, our evidence is
Which card is that?
predictive.
Sorry.
It says that that's
Rodenbach
part of a
and-
trend of increasing militancy. So more will start.
Rodenbach, in the context of specific supply chains such as semiconductors, says that future strikes.
Wait,
will
it says
be
a strike would be bad. It doesn't say strikes are happening
I
now.
think it's also predictive. It says that
If a strike were to occur, that's the
No,
first line.
I don't think so.
Wait,
MCG
what-
and Hyder also says that. More importantly, for defense, we have examples of strikes, such as when Boeing struck.
Okay, but that's not
struck
sufficient to
for
trigger your impact. So you need a
Well,
card
I
that says
mean,
it's going
for
to.
military, definitely, it's like, I mean, the
Well, no, you need a card that says it's going to be worse in the future. Like,
well,
obviously, otherwise
we've just said that strikes themselves are bad for supply chains and bottleneck them.
But strikes alone obviously thump into oblivion. You need something that says it's going to get worse in the future, and I'm asking for one credit
It
that says in the
does
future
say
it's going
it's
to be worse.
worse in
Which
the
one?
future, and that it's markedly higher in recent years
Which-
than it was in the past.
Which card
But
is this?
Polyvish-Leaveley evidence also connects it to manufacturing and says it's particularly bad in like Rust Belt manufacturing.
Okay, sounds good. Advantage 3. Can you explain how is it just like increasing productivity solves debt?
Yes, like we grow faster than we increase spending, that solves debt because
Okay.
it stabilizes the debt.
How is it distinct from your impact on advantage 2 about like financial regulations and the economic collapse, or is it just like same internal
Well,
advantage?
one is recession decline. The other one is just our ability to spend into like social safety or like excess social safety.
Sounds good.
Right. Grid? Yep. I'll take it's 9 off. And then 1, 2, 3. I'm setting up the dock. Right. It's 9. Okay, people got the doc / video.
3 seconds.
Cool. Good. Sweet. First, to take collective bargaining rights are process rights rooted in the NRA and must decrease employer power to establish conditions of employment without a union. U.S. Court of Appeals 2213C by collective bargaining rights employers are entitled to the negotiation with their employer over wages and hours terms and conditions of employment does not exist if an employer retains power without the union's rights to determine by non ability to plan weaken CBR, HLR 17 to waiver recover. Prior to the court to hold action, the collective adjudication is not able to the right of the NRA to hold other rights to private contracting. The NRA granted the rights to take an separate agreement of employers to protect the bargaining power waiver, which are to pre-NRA area where Congress never propagated collective bargaining rights, class action laws. This means collectively attempted to run the NRA collective action on serve the means, sections of rights to themselves, and NRA could serve without service functions employees require employees to waive other remedies conditioning on waiver to interfere or shrink or coerce employees, make it possible. Exercise rights. Vote negative. Vote negative. Any other interpretation expands the scope of employment law, which makes the topic bidirectional and incoherent. Next is midterm. The United States Senate took a big Donald Trump the next time he is impeached. The federal government should basically hold certified 2026 midterm elections. Develop the Golden Dome, prohibit the Golden Dome on Wednesday, November 4th. Then the federal government is essentially strengthening collective bargaining rights for workers in the United States by establishing that the supersede workers' contrary statutory interest to plan build the conservative labor movement, which is the populist win that we are in labor towards Republicans. 25, the red pro worker and the orange class American come with the building conservative labor movement. They're the foundation for broader reliable away from the liberal whatever the complete democratic party right wing fingerprints without the label but the word people to be able to union leaders trying to see the opening whatever events member to against national school rights according to how we defend that's what we need to take a white wing co-worker policy workers from the friends back in the political wilderness demonstrating Trump was also the solution of existential threats Jackson 25 midterm top Trump them house block damage red action country environment alliances are all the Trump other guys said the national standing company Trump puts up the dictator everything alliance agreement of competent right to check the Congress remain the president of House rules are bound toward natural Watergate 18 hours hold the administration accountable Congress can investigate and impeach Trump to issues to be away from money issue to direct money to help the lead and stop the Golden Dome Cox 25 Pentagon and it's capable of GD political fate decided by the midterm to the House who have how enthusiastic are they going to be about putting money for GD Golden Dome locked in pathways to extinction including Space Force and first second stability Robot Act 25 GG under my confidence in the turrets perhaps how they said ASAT on our system road norms that increase make up degrees so that satellite dome and the right second the perception could increase the discovery resources the reference triad red type ready this no accelerate nuclear program next up not the federal government should the United States should create industry standard right for workers in the United States including minimum standards of $30 per hour and next to inflation 32-hour work week with 2 days overtime 14 days notice for scheduling change provide a universal basic income and job guarantee provide paid family and medical leave job training as paid time abolish collective bargaining rights for workers in the United States adopted internally binding Hoover no first use policy ban strikes use antitrust monopolies and at least tech agriculture and finance only employment law solves govern anti-labor law relevant federal worker for workers the industrialization global production offshore tech fight the anti-union state tech replacement employees deterring qualification worker development social protection the wage and employment law and litigate rights for action hard recipient government worker employees will now fees and litigate PAG circumvent arbitration central for unpaid labor the employment law primary guardian that court is marked out primary primary guardian. Next is Inflodia. Labor productivity boosts the dollar, both for 25, higher productivity, higher wages, on higher exchange rate, higher labor intensity, even that sector neutral improvement in sector exchange rate, available capital. With per unit of labor, the stronger the exchange rate. Currency pressure results in failed labor policy, presumption, Pettis 25, foreign capital, low company bodies, demand on the cut excess. Alpha countries export direction, use demand to be of exporting capital, directly comes to the cost, changing internal imbalances, forces, inflows, force, adjustment rates, the dollar, the adjustment makes worth less competitive and rotatable goods sector, manufacturing decline, wages, stagnate, shift from direct global activity, service sector, capital inflow, force, shift, competition, creating national borrowing, deficit, forcing up unemployment, dollar strength is key to strength of Asian economies, cushion us 26, US dollars is back to rate appreciation, foreign markets are rising back to the back to weakness, back to negative backdrop, continue asset outperformance, outlook for Asia remains bullish, positive bond outlook, Mexico stability creates a supportive backdrop for the region for broader Asian trade, through all the equity from both like external brands, got Pacific Korea, Indonesia, foreign exchange strategy demand, portfolio driver, Chinese econ collapse, cause extinction, AG25 compression, direct escalation, gambling, crisis of legitimacy, compression, pressure, creating places down on their option, acceleration, timeline, vulnerability leaders, exploit trying to take case of economic nation, Illinois CCTV, climatic station, the CCTV survival, Beijing, gambling, conflict, office, only way to live, rest on prosperity, consequence, pressure, escalation, gambling, direction, not an essential, the narrow window, instead of check inside one manufacturer, external combination, desperate worse, a necessity. Next up, defense spending passes now. Tell us 3019, Republican for a while, based on the solid conciliation market, GOP leader bill. Is objective defending the urgency needs to break to the floor, break to the physical hard conciliation about the quota replenish munition use, right up the tension and arrangement. We need this GOP leaders want a part line bill, planted the poison pill, block and talk 24. Whether Republicans party against pro-union, no, not a single Republican support the pro-act GOP and the point power to kill them, states, labor preemption, and acting policies that hinder unity on the union question. Republicans propose, Republicans at worker, then really means the break or UP hostility. Stockpile shortage causes Taiwan invasion, Bolin 26, wanted to diminishing key tactical weapon strategic consequences of the future war against the paper and that drain system will be accidental political conflict over Taiwan quantity demanding the Taiwan war accidental McGuire 25 war over Taiwan complaining the economy into recession puts capital for good for all. Humanity check nuclear war cooperation and they were prepared and they were prepared and of emerging technology and climate change that could elevate nuclear collision kind of the western leather when order limited to work because the that relates actually after the war with foster centers about check AI biological weapon lead escalation and cooperation of climate change craft. The Canadian simulation of trajectory and turn into uses to fail to turn power global CO world democracy and more to the invasion of neighboring state weak make. You know what the parole next is cap labor law tools capital system legal elections subsume class structure into capital accumulation verse 24 labor law capital accumulation improvement labor possible still accumulation capital capital the historical entity contracts of capital and labor profits over the capital against the combination of worker capital worker base and at the end of the period the interest of capital the worker right the definition of worker the non satisfied everywhere but to enterprise right organization not company workers how to be lost to donation capital organization for the part of the corporation organization when the working class emphasis among workers augment current economic restructure and break down unity a worker to go production cascades into intermediaries capitalism unsustainable the AMS 25 innovation contributed to the deforestation and GHG coding, access to gene tech, against money inequality, we get 40% total media benefits, population, innovation, create deployment of the AWS well-paid framework management, innovation loaded on the DEFCON protectors, FECC, 2 degrees, traffic for economies and health, inclusive level of the whether having management crisis, not economical, political, and revolution, and war, air, goes the military, donation, display jobs, exasperating inequality, disability, final wasting cyber encryption, underpinning military economy, the breaches of the federal government, framework, quick for consequences, right now, with reputation disruption are significant. All is workers control, remember 22 social around the world, worker control, DD organization on the end performance system of corporate rate with worker part of the capital and find the benefits makes the producing class possible for the property class control for the veganism for the branch takeover tax the capital over people real working class we work out all people with the capital the capital side with the ranking political system corporate capital branch to enable to or send the child capitalism then text. The United States federal government should establish that workers being harmed by collective failure of collective negotiation and collective bargaining rights for workers in the United States by the establishment that they supersede workers' contrary statutory interest in the violation of justice under the promissory estoppel. It's gradually increasing reliance damages which spills over to reiterate contract, which is otherwise affirmative alone causes relitigation, which is the presumption work of the terms case. Task 1 3, the duty to bargain, difficulty finding remedy too big, uncompetitive required, the result of without relitigation, contract termination, lead over for another damages to go too far than could, and its liability, water remedies, open out interim obligation remedies, and significantly flexible to fit, coming forward to remedy flexibility, then head to equitable remedy, kind of put load solves, get closing gaps, more 25 promissory estoppel key to preventing criminal contention of having alliance disappointed to whether the contract will gap the protect reasonable expectation purposes not made in force of the basis of the intended estoppel and the deep contested rather expansion of rights. Key to impose liability for contract, get up 25 automation required framework value specifying contract with mutual alliance. Contract liability when the basis of not contractual estoppel promises alliance even with the mechanisms in the possible the basis of an operating problems from contracting concept. A promise estoppel best fits several advantages those that backward looking to remedy harm to avoid problems basically saying contract based on mutual otherwise extinction. Walkers 22 challenges at the market from infant collapse tech failure contagion reduce. Arise new reductions contain effectively market perform a quick part threats for comprehensive framework and core tools will entail external consequences that the economic construct threat, a new model, reach complexity, new system, and dynamic contract with Digitask. That card is marked election task case. Kitchen gives the building all clouds of all thumped and the award war thump supply chain structure down now. Environment 2018, the corner IR strike decrease in 2025, fits also includes tech activity in 2021. But not as many in 2024, market continue decline, supply chain resilient, capacity all 24 reduction. Supply base focus on resilience, adaptability, company seek opportunity, while keeping margin restructuring, aimed at growth through policies, identify tech leverage strategies, diversify suppliers, the new agreement that put a tech to create resilient supply chain, trade and sell work 24 individual studies, exporting options, the comments from feature, just individual studies, and all critical research. Some sections complex 52, 57 examine, just things when it affects all people, so many answers, not before down to anything effective. Finance and Mercury literature also investors we say as we were only for studies on one of the table the effect. Minutes 2. Firms have Goldilocks leverage now. Fed 20 plan causes XNT debt raising. We and all 23 firms make underinvestment. The firm uses the exact concession that the higher industry that you didn't take concession the investment decision from the just leverage. Record negotiation using data we predict with test the effect of the significant bond financing key to chem industry. But grid all 25 cutting chemical that's happening average these topic fundamental debt is growing class the cost of amplify volatility trigger margin close second the whole depend on liquidity. Only biotech self extinction dairy at all 21 events innovation biotech self disease and energy cloud increase for rating cost effective data stored country these biotech will shape norm concrete transparency embrace energy work transparency change the battlefield of those applications industry any influence any natural legends or technical biotech application or planetary survival. No food impact industrial act all state Grimwood 24 industrial act which is the amount of food and modest amounts of land the world will need more to feed 10 million acre farms best of the fertilizer to production methods will kill projects of growth or disaster to replace industrial methods the formula develop more earth power more land to occupy not chemicals real classroom funding new food cards the industrial farming and default made for change climate after contract harmless Quebec creating global cool and green real estate buildings from starvation cannot take longer to be slaughtered because the river method to use more water. That is 3. Productivity high. LPL research 26. Productivity research 2025 company properties for increase in input automation, data-driven decision tools, and tech read output productivity with the main above trend. States.
Yep.
Go back to states. 50 states that are relevant to national entities should standardly strengthen collective bargaining rights for workers in the United States by establishing that they supersede workers contrary that's their interest and to limited constitutional convention. Strengthen collective bargaining rights for workers in the United States by establishing that they supersede workers contrary that's their interest and no preemption tax 11 preemption suffer from detection no other information instead of agreement and connection will be known only to the parties. Stacks is marked that only to the parties. Flip across.
Give me a second to mark that. Parties?
Yeah, only to the parties.
What are the text reserve states?
I read just the states plank and then the con plank, not the NGA plank, and not the tripartite lawmaking one.
Known only to the parties?
Yes, no, only to the parties. Okay. And the planks I read were just
okay.
Yeah.
You're good.
Yep.
Okay, you skip Buddhism.
Yep.
And then on states, can you send out text after?
Yeah, just like the
Yeah. Okay. Status.
conditional skills option against QMS.
This case turn. Explain it.
The case turn says that during the process of negotiation, because of the good faith bargaining standards, companies have incentive to take on more debt. The reason for that is when they're bargaining, they say that they're incapable of paying. However, if they have more debt, then the capacity for them to pay wages is even lower. So they get more financing, they get to pay lower wages. That turns case, it hurts the credit market.
Wait, why does bargaining or the plan cause this?
Because the app would lower the floor where they are able to negotiate under, so they could get rid of current gains.
Wait, but why does that cause them to take on more debt?
Because debt means that they have less cash available, and so in good faith bargaining, then they have less cash available to give to workers.
Okay, but if they get to waive things like wages, wouldn't they just use the extra cash to pay their debts?
No, because they have to pay the interest. But if they already are capable of paying the interest on debt, and they then are able to pay down the actual principal on the debt, then the interest fee goes away, and the money that they would be paying on interest then goes to workers, and then they would have to increase wages anyways. Because there's a difference between paying the interest and paying the principal down.
Okay. Okay. I want to go to the advantage counterclaim.
Yep.
U.S. Is it the states or the Fed or both?
The one like title advantage kind of win is federal government.
Okay. That makes sense. The midterms DA, did you say Dome and Trump or just?
Yeah, write everything on that.
Okay. And then T, strength is determined by non-waivability. This seems to be about the SQO.
No, it defines the terms and then makes normative claims about quote the strength of bargaining power, and then says that waivers are the opposite direction of that. The HLR card is pretty explicit.
That assumes the SQO where employers can just waive things because they're anti-worker and anti-employee, but after the plan, workers are able to waive, which is pro-worker.
But it says that waivability itself is the metric, and says that the ability to go beyond the floor. Correct, but waivability for employees still allows for the weakening.
That's the SQO. Yeah,
but you're correct that workers having the right to waive has no implication if it's true that the waivability itself is an infringement upon CDR.
The interp for the U.S. Court of Appeals card says does not exist if the employee retains a power. How do you measure the strength of a power to a point where you realize an app is topical where workers have more power than the employee?
I think in this case, it would be probably read through the HLR card, which defines it in the context of
how do you
waivability
measure-
being
How do
strength.
you measure that? Like in a world of sectoral bargaining, that could give workers more rights, but if workers always lost in the case of sectoral bargaining, or at the bankruptcy act, if bankruptcy courts always ruled against the worker, this seems to mix burdens massively.
Well, I don't think so, because the rights would be strengthened, i.e. it creates a new method for them to be able to have ways of negotiation. But then like the other questions about like solvency are different from that original question,
Sure.
just like
And
the
then
method itself.
Inflow DA, are you gonna spot us like all of like the app solves all of dollar hedge?
Yes.
Oh, nice. Okay. You need that.
I think you can.
Yeah. Even I say this in the politics, I think we should just say this all. And then I have it like it's. Okay, Jared, to clarify, states you read normal plus con.
I sent it out, like just like the plain text written by the states, copy pasted, and then the con.
Yes, I do.
No hidden theory.
No.
Net benefit to advantage counterpoint.
Midterms. Actually, probably not midterms.
Yeah.
To be fair, politics and the case turns.
Okay. You're good. Yeah, but they didn't say consoles. They just said no preemption. So just like they said no preemption. They didn't say federalism.
Okay.
They only said normal states plus con. 831.
Can you hand me this? The order is unions, regulations, voice, topicality, the states captain, the reliance damages counterplan, the advantage counterplan, the cap pay, and I will repeat this after, the midterms DA, the politics DA. Actually, I'm changing that. I'm gonna go inflow and then politics. So unions, regulations, voice, topicality, states, the reliance damages counterplan, the advantage counterplan, the cap K, the midterms DA, inflow politics. We'll keep referencing.
Say durable fiat and solvency somewhere because it said presumption.
Yeah. I already have that.
827.
States reliance advantage is the
Yes.
I'm good. Yeah, I'm good too.
No, because they didn't say which ones are we going to answer this, and also doesn't assume our internally that materially produces Iran's uniqueness. It places strains, but no evidence says it's globally collapsed supply chain, and it just puts pressure that strikes control of the whole system. Supply chain collapse causes exchange of global cooperation on AI, biotech, dynamics, food, and energy is underpinned by financial markets that are upended by domestic collapse. Otherwise, systemic structures make every accidental risk inevitable. That can independently cause global conflict in India, Pakistan, Europe, and Africa through state fragility and terrorism. Nuclear war through drawn enemy issues that salute manufacturing plant, independently importance, terrorist aggression over Taiwan, Ukraine, SC, the Middle East, through student trafficking, giving cause, drawing the negotiation that Johnson, and Moser. Regulations. No link. The plan makes unions good. They're not statistic and ineffective now because they have to resort to disruptive tactics to create for workers. The process of collective bargaining prevents strikes that makes unions more cooperative, making employers less likely to take on debt. No. Biotech will be incremental minor prediction or work by industry. Lumber 16. Warning of predictive which is to be industry contributed for genetic to be industry confidential waiting predictable emerging as predictable level we have that entry valid extradition, calculated misleading estimation whether this would be argued there will not be non-existent. No controlling the other countries are all causes of biotech innovation. They either innovate cures or make the threats inevitable. No controlling their evidences or reverse policies say greater bargaining would increase debt, and it says that companies are increasing their debt obligations in the status quo. It's thumped by interest rates, which are a bigger all cause because they determine whether it's economically viable or incentivizable for companies to take on debt, and the plan reduces their wage obligations, which means that they can just pay off the debt. Food security, underpinned state stability, threats ensure national security prices, that cooperation build enables Europe and climate change, that's causes extinction. Their evidence says industrial agriculture solves it, but our internally is that consolidation makes industrial agriculture ineffective. And adversarial tech in Germany causes power grabs, and escalates talk about Taiwan, nuclear power from great power competition, and drawn that's according financial collapse causes extinction, accelerates multipolarity, cyber attacks, and collapses cooperation of climate change, terrorism, and ensures executive with Russia and China. That's Victoria. Voice. Productivity growth solves debt, spending capacity channels funds towards pandemics, climate change mitigation, and nuclear risk management, otherwise extinction. Their evidence that says productivity growth is high now is insufficient to solve our internal link because debt is rising faster than productivity, which is the threshold, but it is inadequate. Reason gains are much. They reflect job cuts, not growth policy. Reason productivity growth more growth than miracle productivity growth than research company that temporarily reducing employment productivity research and the financial crisis plus productivity systems of this productivity growth has been a no-show. We made their interpretation, plan to vacuum is the most objective and modifies what we do, and their interpretation is about the waivability of collective bargaining rights, not employment rights, CBRs or process rights, including non-process provisions. Reading 16 different reasons we are protected within the process of procedure making collective agreement process negotiations here, or rights to process CBRs, universal interest to word negotiation, collective bargaining rights need not be mandatory. Gregor 94 collective bargaining provisions and negotiation and legally enforceable right or obligation to strengthening right overcomes opposing interest. Shall issue and for the organization to strengthen to regard this another way of expressing disagreement with government activities, research strength is ability to overcome opposing interest within its scope. Preferred after their interpretation causes absolutes to state some needs between undercovered and worker. It also elements causing sale to be critically our interpretation is seminal legal writing that stresses the importance of the distinctions. No limits around the functional constraints like states improvement and literature type visibility race to the bottom, then cause substance conditionalities of litigation, no cause options to skew this makes the indisincentivized research, ruining fairness, clash, and education dismissals or offense states. Permutation do both. Shields interfuses to blame to state reps. Permutation do the counterplan. Uniform 56 is voting issue. Distorts the literature base makes it impossible to guard against the right fairness and clash. Concon is a voting issue. Is not reward or assumed by literature and impossible to beat. They also didn't say that it solves or read cards that we get new answers and classify the certainty deficit that I'll read on the other page. And links that benefit legislators get blame for state action. The counterplan is preempted. Multiple to the message of the national and W reduces from unpolitical or NW. Nor can they touch collective bargaining. CLJ 22 federal brief general bill rules and 15 for other conversations on the privately activated or arguably flesh reliance damages counterplan. Perm to both, it shields by including the counterplan signal, perm to the counterplan, perm to the plan of the counterplan over other issues. Can you make the text? No presumption. Durable fiat precludes relitigation. There's no impact. The counterplans must compete via text and function. Functional and fiat in the DE, we say after classes, after research, object can be permutation via the counterplan, then the plan. It's should design media front, a should look to future considering possible events. No solvency. Absent fiat, the counterplan is watered down. Corporate for the moving into rights and substantial back with identity, promulgated rules, and which is about and signals of performance. Our should have been corporate interview, not distributed out of unremovable doctors, and speak out of unmovable uncertainty chills applies federal expectedly the same as unprotected strikes. Later stating committal officers for protected and protected which are the awareness of our rights of joint use having to the evidence of alcohol global legal agreement with the rights acted activities and protected discipline of all to stay uncertainty like the protected no benefit one shot use one set of precedent see no ruins because unwavering success is key. There's no impact is unwarranted and just a laundry list advantage template. And if you doesn't solve our impacts about adversarial first strike, so we can't solve escalation, it would also lead causing aggression and proliferation. Permutation do both permitting counterplan strengthening, permutation do the plan and ban unions, permitted plan and ban and all other instances, reduct ban counterplans, less than fiat and undesirable subject accumulating, infinite non-germane offense, which is unpredictable and unfair. Banning strikes does not solve advantage to or advantage three about why they're good. If anything, it causes illegal strikes, which are worse. Every other plan is worse because it makes operating businesses more expensive by the way that they wrote it actually raises the obligations and labor regulations without giving them the opportunity to waive it. Unions are key. One, employer opposition, only allowing rights to be waived by unions. Moderates opposition to unions, encourages union density, threat, disruptive strikes, encourages voice out industries to industrial peace, only the process of collective bargaining rights, worker and union disillusionment that otherwise causes disruptive strikes. 3, efficiency. Unions overcome information gap, prevent free writing, and strategically waive. That's a Schwab evidence that I'm pretty sure was in the 1AC. Also, they didn't read solvency advocates to the one area to answer cap hit. Framework, plan desirability. Entails weighing the case, having links to the place, found implication, and combination will be derived from text and functions, underneath the decimates, various class, per project, free framework, permanent both either the all overcomes link towards insufficient and permanent planning and not mutually exclusive of other instances, and the elements of the alternative link is not unique or never real once the existing growth is sustainable. In order to identify releases with the physical evidence, identifying the publication of the economic future processes, survey lobbying, continued sitting, but loser, as well as the resource about the decoupled question, the probability, and based on what the victim's real feedback, applications will protect the CD prefer, the inverse way which results in better reasons after being able to deliver. And feedback to solution challenges and innovation. The alternative collapses determines middle, non-19 pressure to the Ukraine killing back what we're doing and as well like the people who are divided for programs similar to the development provision for killing the by seek over to active word with US. So we're watching these resemble political public over conversion supporting the lens to make the legislation when the extent of any people's international defense of provisions of global US and coalition leverage or Washington force should any US continue at the all cancel worker discontent socialism is worse for inequality so workers would cause disruptive trends. All things to domestic collapse victorious is a shock that precipitates internationally cause war bitters. Permanent vote, permanent counterplan, permanent plan in any combination, delay is not competitive, and it's a voting issue since no app has an amazing key over short time permits. Blue wave or walls. Republicans 326 rich number of blue wave negative for experience for the average and then short thing forecast the plan is perceived as pro-employer. Corporate 24 whatever could be for commercial they accept the conditions for offloading worker protections. If Trump kids with the plan is for workers against anything is for workers who link is nimble. Thumbed by Schedule F, largest active union busting. Also, Iran CBAC oil prices outweigh affordability. Message. And the knowledgeable policymaker could decline and knock all the dome black swans find spontaneous market collapse or scandals could thump. No Trump, no impact. It doesn't say extinction of records can't check because it does it through accidents. Case solve the terminal impact better. In 6 years of Trump's up. Strategic stability thumped by spending Iran politics and current missile system. It's too expensive and won't be built. Not only 370. Don't raise procure additional thing 43 percent they exceed administrative $2 million under the replacement role in the program. No impact. Hybrid 16 administrative living less than for research the defense of the relations for Richard Clinton defense maybe another national objectives for now with the Richard for their policy goals. Info. Dollar has pulled dirt. Trolls 924. U.S. astronaut for service and SB amazing that was giving up a number high return available there marked by strong dollar market. Strong dollar and dollar decline is existential. Mohai said 25. China should have the Pacific giving another war over Iran and Africa the Persian goal as British like on the pretty nominal video for companies while the cause consider cause evidence so look up the interview center because we're going to through over weeks I believe a vacuum of filled by autograph that all you can find in the structural safety and technical dollar over to be critical to treat consistent to decline to over several admin for the by lower different distinction of break of the network and fragment security fears come. Domestic issues are insufficient to trigger invasion. Travel 23 China's the Russian information watch on the leader where about a problem during crisis China frequently suffered significant shortcomings with later studying harsh ideals action China yet did not initiate the key solve the impact because hard power can deter them from doing it. Politics. The case can you get more stuff for this? The key solves the terminal impact is manufacturing remedial efforts solves shortfalls. They took over 3 several efforts and inventory military. We're going to make it easier to rebuild and lower cost and facility large market facility large. The plan is bipartisan. Right on the other page, it won't pass. McCarthy 39. The person said any of those Republican pass the same back for the versus percent. Change for more threatening how to be our and to turn more DP we can fight push to less Republicans and they can work and jump start a reconciliation push. D not to logical policymaker could do both thumb first cross apply from midterms.
Cool. 956, taking a second round.
Cool.
Cool.
13.
Let me. We had
942.
940. Yeah.
45.
Okay, good to go?
Yep.
Cool. If the plan is perceived as pro-employer, why does it attract bipartisan support?
Because you've said that that's popular and something Republicans are looking to do.
Why do Democrats support?
Why would Democrats? Because they we said it's anti-worker.
I agree. You said it's anti-worker, pro-employer. So I'm asking you, why would it attract bipartisan support?
Well, because Republicans would support it, and they're
That's one party.
Like,
what about the Dems?
It need not be bipartisan. Like reconciliation bills only need a majority in the House. I'm pretty sure.
Okay, sure. Okay, majority in the House, so don't need Dems. But does the 2AC make a claim that Dems will support the plan?
No.
No. Okay, gotcha. Midterm disadvantage proper then. The first card. Okay, just quick. Okay. The argument at the top here, blue wave overwhelms. I see it cites the upset election in the special election. I guess this argument is the argument just that the special elections are predictive, or do you think this card makes a broader claim that proves like inevitability of overwhelms? What's the overwhelm for that?
Like both. Like, so special elections are early signs of how voter sentiment is turning out in the midterms. They've all been blue crushes, which is a sign that Democrats have
Special
a ton
okay,
of
the
support.
special
and
elections
it's gonna overwhelm.
have been having less than 40 to 30% of turnout than there would be in even a midterm cycle, much less a general
Sure, but
election.
it's still
Why is
a-
it predictive?
It's still a sample of voters, and our evidence cites other facts like polling showing negative sentiment towards Republicans, and also says that Trump is just generally ineffective. He's
Well-
not able to take advantage.
Well, I
of
guess let's
things.
talk about that. The bottom of this card says shift of
Also,
double digits
our
towards
evidence
the
answers
Dems.
this and says special elections have quote historically forecasted the midterm.
Which special elections have historically forecasted their midterms?
Well, just like in general, like every single term, there's special elections.
Some of
Our
these elections
evidence says in general, the results of those special elections are trends for the midterm.
Okay, the Corbett evidence plan is received as pro-employer. I guess I understand this portion of it. What do you think this card gets you in terms of saying that people would not like the plan, or that can't be run on?
It's not supported by workers. It's not perceived as worker economic populism. It's perceived as giving employers the opportunity to avoid regulation.
But you've
so
made
it's
you've
favorable
made
for them.
claims that workers both increase relationship for workers because they have the right to waive those rights, and that it would
No
increase
one
things
has
like
read evidence
relations.
that say that workers like the plan.
You've
In
read
fact,
it. Wait.
The plan is
You've read a labor
reinvesting
management
that
relations
quells
scenario.
worker populism and labor
Wait,
militancy
whoa.
that's
We
ongoing.
gotta talk about this. How do you solve industrial strife if you simultaneously say workers don't like
Because
what the
it
plans?
pacifies those things and brings employers to the bargaining table.
Pacification implies the workers are okay with the new system. Like you don't go on strike because you're okay with
It's
waiving
not
rights
that
and getting
they're
lower
okay with
wages.
the new system. It's that they're striking now because they want to unionize, and their employers won't let them.
Okay, we gotta.
The plan brings employers to the bargaining table and makes them relent on unionization.
Okay.
It's not perceived as pro-worker. It's perceived as pro-employer and letting them skirt regulations.
Okay, but if it's perceived as that, and a worker voluntarily decides, as you said, to waive to go below that floor, why would that worker then be upset that they were able to voluntarily waive that right? Why would that voter become anti?
Well, like it's perceived as pro-employer.
Okay.
9:41 starting now.
On this one, I'm gonna do this, this. I'm gonna get time for this.
Wait, I think you should do. We should do them. This one.
Okay. Where is it?
This.
Okay.
Just. There's two midterms there. That's the higher one. It's very important to really prioritize doing this.
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna do this.
Use 344 bit, and actually I'm gonna wait for them to come back before I send it. 344. That's 6, 5, 57. Okay, here we go. Can you stand here?
Yeah.
How much time do you have left? 5:57. Did I send it? Okay, 260%. I'll get order in 1 second once I am done setting up. Okay. The order is the capital inflow DA, the advantage counter plan, the reliance damages counter plan, the camp K, the states counter plan, T, advantage 1, 2, 3. I'll give that one more time. Capital inflow, advantage counter plan, reliance damages counter plan, cap K, states counter plan, T. Oh, sorry, not 1, 2, 3. 2, 1, 3. Sorry about that. Okay, is anyone not ready? Awesome. Chinese economic decline nations Taiwan invasion to say states feel legitimacy in the face of domestic turmoil that always first magnitude greater isolation as a novel new take-based intervention will be constrained and spills over to cross-medium warfare, air, naval, cyber, and space. Second time for Chinese basic capabilities and resolving into other collapse returns by increase of perceived win rates and lowering cost expected causation, making the circulation invasion a no lose scenario if the economy declines. It turns the entirety of the case obviously turns advantage 1 because the entire impact scenario is about the economy, which China would obviously subvert, as well as the impact about China. The event turns advantage 2 because about economic growth, as well as this findings that turn ag, and then obviously 3 because Chinese economic decline spills over. Chinese economic decline has global economic nuclear weapons use and rapid instability. Why you trying to take clubs in China? We ensure that every single reactor had with possibility use with instabilities very that very section when the multi-sided movings and nobody on the loose to the left. With the global economy large person data every reflected decline ties disease and for town innovation escalation the year 25 6 over to me. Look at one global with great down the novel sector promoting air the viruses yesterday interview high being an increase nationalism that is eating the CCP ensures the station the West Side 24 hard or secure weather configuration public and desert country challenge welcome to the public the use like the good difference the central element of the states turns case drop you know you whatever responsibilities of purpose of 2C missteps. Global field does not
not solve. A stronger dollar makes exports more expensive and hurts gains from imports that disincentivizes domestic input, resulting in lower wages and more unemployment, which turns the entire decrease and ensures more strikes. That is PETUS. Now, capital inflow decreases productivity. I'm actually not going to read that card because the 20 case was dropped in the 20C. Now, they've dropped the link, increases productivity, increases capital inflow, and there's higher investment incentive, higher productivity, raises the return on capital, and reduces capital inflow that mechanically strengthens the exchange rate by increasing the real exchange rate. Now, dollar resilience is irrelevant. Our original link is not about stopping replacing the dollar, but is about strengthening the dollar, which capital inflow does trigger, which means that their dollar hedge resilient is it takes out their impact, but not our impact. There's no interlink on dollar hedge good. I've already answered invasion on likely above, so I'm not going to read the extra cards. Now, the advantage counterplan concede primitive both justice as competition theory is a reason. Trinity argument of the theme. Reliance and damages concede primitive both justice as competition theory is a reason. The argument of the theme. KK concede primitive both justice as competition not a reason. Theory is a reason. The argument of the team. Same with the state's counterplan T. Condell, we get what we did against new affirmatives. First, logic disproving the counterplan doesn't prove the plan is good. Keeping predictable debate. Second, the skew is good because it's F sandbagging and F likes to do topic bias. First, last speech. F choice firms 1 year murder and new F third innovation teams don't research or break new arguments which the turns to strategy or competition outweighs breaking new as well as this means that we are not able to choose our best arguments. There's no functional limit. 4, predictability, non-serious, infinitely regressive kills debate. 5, no offense. T, DSPs and diminishing utility triggers skew and competition ensures research. 6, reasonability cross apply for T. Only holders are accountable. We did in this rank valid instead of model 7. This will fails. No one knows what it is. Results plus counterplan and force firms 8 reject the argument of the T. Next 2. But the innovation outweighs innovation is gene editing, solve disease, food supply collapse, climate change, and ecological limits drop that only the US can solve because the largest firms and bioethics, otherwise China will escalate using tech dominance, which is an independent drop scenario that's dark, is an impact filter that's not something and do out of research on personality, emerging health, emerging basic developing security, natural disaster, the media casting and cuts because it turns every impact advantage 1. Obviously, economic collapse disrupts supply chains, also causes strikes, which is a link turns case when we have uniqueness, and they have not read strikes in the 2AC. Second, financing turns it, and then advantage 2 as well as 3 because they're all just econ impacts. Now, the F decimates the labor of the debt market. More cooperative is irrelevant. And companies can go lower by increasing debt. They'll maximize it. First, leverage firms counter union power by using more debt that's statistically proven over decades. They show industries with higher unions result in more corporate debt. Leverage affects the relationship because they will say during bargaining that their balance sheet is not strong enough for new capital outflows, which requires underinvestment in human capital to offset that. It does not matter if they're more cooperative because companies will preemptively do this, which is the analysis that the Julie evidence is. It forces companies to increase leverage as Helford at all 24. Because the other effect of the capital structure, the effects on bargaining power, the counter bargaining about the bargaining power affects the corporation. Union increase cost of equity, which means they must raise debt at all time. Unions increases having risk. Actually, not going to read that card. The second, bankruptcies, unions cause them and cause the banking system. That's 1820. Never mind. Gonna skip those cards. Not relevant. The other countries, 1, it's false. They dropped. It's unethical. No other guidelines. In other countries, which maximizes downside to not solving any of our impact. That's Sewell evidence. Second, China, they dropped. The decline causes Chinese dominance. That's Darby and Sewell. That causes a war in terms of case extinction. That's 24. But I think puts back to the population enhancement and innovation is crucial. The biotic imports capability and the fighting power have raised things about China. The super soldiers have a big advantage in China's investment implication with capabilities. The US was assured does not file. Yes, interlink, revert link is reverse causal. It increases debt, which also turns case because they would be able to offset it, which is the link explained above. Corporate debt is key to align providing innovation. Credit conditions are tightening across the sector as they have high debt levels above weak cash flows. They are reaching maturity walls now, which the rank strong debt service is necessary to ensure sustained investment. Anything else results in capital volatility, margin causing collapse, investor protection of biotech across the board. This Weisenberg firms are maintaining global leverage now. That's a Fed 25 because the related leverage decreases historical low strengths and enhancing the vulnerability. Hedge fund and leverage plus highlighting the downside risk of making against default. The interest rate is irrelevant. Wrong. We have evidence to say the debt is statistically correlated with unions. Anything in all causes is irrelevant because financing is fine now, but the affirmative makes it larger. Now, industrial ag solves. Industrial ag is key. The yields and clubs cannot solve. I'm not sure what the 2AC warrant is. It just asserts that consolidation is bad without a warrant. You should hold the line. First, land efficiency, industrial ag sign up, that per acre to feed the world. Second, fertilizer, they kill bug, that do some crop growth and maintain yields. Third, very Sri Lanka with vegetable version states also food crisis. That's around 1/4 of there. That's been done at all 18 different FCO, food insecurity is improving. This card at all 25, food insecurity improved by 2035, most because and comes to the world with food inflation, food is 26%. Wars are fought over food discovery 22. Also, the United States is more important to the class of 80 parts of the nation, avoiding mortality, immigration, intervention, associated with people who become the empirical observation of crisis, not sufficient arrest. Next one. Look, the 2AC extended impacts, but did not re-impact uniqueness, which is the only thing I read on this advantage. The strikes are down now, stoppages decreased by 24%, and workers are in strikes and decreased by 22%. That's lower than the lowest in 2021, and way before the 70s. Evidence is consistent as Cal and ILR, 25, stoppages decreased by 38%, and 45%. They track activities in the 70s, so there's 60% of the 5% comprehensive good side. Worse, are concentrated in healthcare, that's Greco 218. The worst subject with 60% of the healthcare solid jumps since 2020, individuals with plans that increase when you jump, and the young workers by 18.5% since 2021. The affirmative does
not solve it. The strikes fail. A scout is current 19. The strikes are not solved. It's like support of the user paired nothing. How long the scene section support has done by strikes being managed to be armed out. B your bench this Moisman. The power have probably into the authorized has intervened for the imperial national guard. The president looking at the agency on the strike lockout. Management. See, liberal versus on its own is on that. Nothing that's representing strikes. The require unions on the first time work with the United States 6% of the return of the situation. The regular not the various like the long month hard work to recurring all the previous communities regular union for men overnight or women. No, the demoralizes and all the participants selection failure. Supply chains don't impact their resilient or adapt and bounce back. Empirics prove companies always seeking more efficient routes and consistently structured supply chains. Government incentivized tech and diversifying supply which creates resiliency. They just said it causes extinction, not that the strikes are capable of collapsing. We have internal link defense is sufficient to overcome strikes in the status quo. Terminal is just food and energy was just resource war. Drug trade is defense means into dynamics and multiple trust about conflict. Also food wars is one this or conflict. Recent conflicts one this being rough. 18 such underneath are logical to extend recent totally conflict building the large number of countries and cooperation to reduce the war is polycrisis. That's also wrong. That's just their 23. And those get better with polycrisis when necessary happen doesn't mean anything polycrisis and we can study with the polycrisis and polycrisis and it says manufacturing the terminal is hedged. There's no impact. That's Mohan. 26 growing powers and not the transformation using the foremost defensive powers Western. This unparalleled alliance is what is the logistics of damage countries and cultural industry. China is this loving the record of reach of logistics development and institution Russia. This all part behind tech and plan properly economy and coalition culture who play the risk and mistrust and will escalate to take 34 third world war with the country US and other generation Iran is like the like party political China Russia Iran these are the weakness China support over the econ accelerated corruption and management universal around the declare popular ways of questions isolation such other trying to fight on the cheap on the recent war and the domestic security reduce with the Chinese challenges the structural governance problems from 25 other pieces you have plus make uninformed decision yes and like other I'm being freaking gathered to leaders with more time repression cases not each other with the powerful the fatal cops of the de-escalation allies are nobody that's in control of the aggressive looking counterbalancing with priority no the trading advanced trade. Productivity is high. Preferred data firm level evidence shows that the consistent capital investment directly drives the total client output. Use firms and upgrade equipment more frequently, sustain long run growth. The advantages: 2AC Paul is just a random writing on a subject. As much as you love your blog, linking to blog is not qualified to be evidence in debate. Warrant was debt is faster. Debt financing is stable. This bullet. 226 good condition leverage is stabilized and the progressive suggestion have balance sheet will low position whether slow down AI is mitigated by balance sheet equity based equity terms of debt is financing slow down the environment between disorderly fundamentals use and mitigate commission fundamentals improve the risk is priced in that Ross 2019 government regional level checks from check individual debt on corporate results reasonable money issues have to get from sensitive with fundamental critiques with optimistic or global finance the productivity data this the vehicle data is CFP 25 the capital accumulation hands apply the paper goes along with the investment patterns the use of productivity is competitive advantage Wall Street and top economist green as Luxembourg 56 years got good efficiency between resurgence and further fees Wall Street with the BMA the productivity is high now but hurt by unionization that's SR24 using wage setting monopoly the negative effect on I'm not gonna read that. Productivity is bottleneck productivity bottleneck economic growth that's Meglo 23 just like the rapid pace of innovation regular productivity goes up to plus and total distribution of rapid productivity concentrated subsidiary sectors great positive payments translate to aggregating suppliers TFP growth adversely affects industries TFP corrected slowdown can be accounted for industry customer industry variance. I'm good. Actually I can get water. I'm good.
Okay. Where do you think you've introduced the argument that the chemical industry is key to biotech innovation?
Well, the chemical industry provides a lot of the materials necessary in order for biotech innovation to exist in the first place. Like, I'm not sure. Like, do you understand the relationship between the two? Like,
so your impact evidence is about mostly gene editing to solve things like diseases or food. Why are chemicals key to that?
well, the way in which manufacturing operates is like you need to have the chemicals necessary for biotech innovation.
What chemicals do we need for biotech innovation? Like,
I'm not
so like
well,
the biggest
I'm not
tech,
a bio or chem major,
the
so
biggest
I'm not
tech
sure.
that your evidence cites is CRISPR. Where did you, like just Pepsi challenge, where do you think you've read a single thing that says the barrier to gene editing is chemical innovation?
Well, you've dropped the scope of the internal link, which is just
No,
like,
you never
the
made an internal link that
Wait,
says chemicals are key to biotech.
Let me
I'm
finish.
asking what that
You
is.
have dropped that. Literally every major chemical company will go under tomorrow if they do not have that.
No,
So
we certainly haven't dropped
Yes,
that.
the Weizenberger evidence is a huge maturity wall across the industry. Is coming within a year.
Where do you think this evidence gets to the level of like literally no chemicals? That's
The Weizenberger evidence is like every major chemical corporation is about to go under because the maturity wall is coming and they need
Where
debt
do
to
you
do
think
so.
it says they literally go bankrupt, like they go
No.
out of business because of
This is how financing works. Like they need more debt to pay down their current debt. This is how refinancing works.
Why?
If they do not have any cash, they do not have cash reserves in the status quo, they can pay down all of those principals that are expiring
Okay.
this year. So
And
they need new kinds of financing. We read evidence that
Why
equity is not
can't we
accessible.
import chemicals from other countries?
I don't think there's an argument made in the 2AC.
Well, you never said chemicals key to biotech
You know what?
either.
If you read a card that's just like we can sustain our biotech industry sans the entire collapse of the US chemical
Why-
industry, I agree.
Why
You've
is
taken out the internal link.
why can only consolidated agricultural firms be be like industrial?
What
What is
do you
it?
mean?
So you've read a bunch of cards that are like industrial agriculture good.
Mhm.
What's the relationship between consolidation and industrial agriculture?
Well, those are sustainable right now.
What?
So like the internal link evidence says that it is sustainable in the status quo. Like industrial agriculture exists and it is fine.
so
It's not going to
you
collapse.
don't think this is offense for you? You think it's just like ag is fine now?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll take the rest.
Did you say you have some content or no? I don't, you,
No,
just a
but if you're just
justification
going to take cross-sector trap, I'm going to start
Well,
speaking.
I
No.
asked
We'll
your
ask-
question.
Okay,
Okay.
we'll ask more
Yeah, sure.
questions.
Wait, why do you think hedge defense on the case doesn't contradict the DA?
Which DA?
The one with China impact.
Because even if they won't attack because they think that they're stronger, but they will attack if they know that they're going to like domestically collapse. So like it's try or die flips our way because there might be a risk that it won't escalate, but there's certainly no way they will like Xi will survive if the economy is gone.
Okay. And then the Civil War thing relies on China like government totally collapsing.
Correct.
Okay. And you think you have an internal link to this? Where?
Yes. Well, the one in C says that the economy is a necessary internal link, and the impact that G evidence says that is the thing upholding G right now.
We are going to start prep.
827.
That's it.
Well, that's irrelevant. Yeah, I've already explained that. Just say process says it. There's the terms fixed, yeah. Or not relevant.
$6:30.
Okay, check out the one. All right, it's done. It's politics midterms. Eric, that's the.
Sorry. How much you have? 6:30, you said?
Agenda first?
Yes.
Okay.
Cool. Good to go.
My thing's
Sorry.
loading.
I also need to find out.
Cool.
Wait. My apologies. Okay, I'm good.
Cool. Good to go. Politics casino link because by far was said that the no link argument status quo development cannot solve the munitions. In fact, on the other page, 1 says that the project right now does not say sufficient or that it will solve. 2, it's too slow. It says beginning stages can't solve the impact in time for the end of 2 and C. 3, cross-examination proof the state to link, which was the stuff I was talking about previously. 4, do ever solve Sherman 26. Trump said the DPA released in 1918 Georgia conventionally. We put a stock files midterms. The link had to put everything the argument of the team justified by conditionality, kicking every plank except for the resign if impeached plank, takes out their Dems can't solve argument because they conceded that it'll be assistant to real impeachment will happen, which solves all the Trump bad reasons. 2 AC defense with analytic, Trump causes the kingship. Jack Evans says Dem House is seeking the range in Trump to impeachment threats. It also holds Trump accountable to eliminate abuses to democracy, environment, global alliances, civil rights, etc. Says all those dark things in DI ways versus time frame come with abusing government structures now, which means that risks are imminent and impossible to resolve without a plan. Second is magnitude because Trump drops every global every struggle. Now, second impact is Golden Dome. It's off extinction. Republican control guarantees funding for the dome and the collapse of the deterrence Western leader to respond, but new super weapons and space nukes which trigger global arms and guarantee the siege that outweighs the time frame of 25 Russian trying to believe the U.S. is building an FD to retail with the U.S. panic. We should exchange will happen in a moment of vulnerability. But mistaking stability solves the case down to 26 and then nukes. Prevent conflict chip with more money than more preventive running combination due to principle of magic to weapon the balance of terror and the package and avoid conflict and also never to turn to the right so the risk of wars and but the rebellion to the right actually the global security. The global Golden Dome ends mad, which ends nuclear peace. Barlow 25 Golden Dome. We'll have bad with the world to decades nuclear peace. Golden Dome is about to defend against our attack. Will be movement with the Americans will advantage. We see the U.S. trying to get advantage of this ability to advance the strike beyond the way before the numbers in place. Golden Dome causes Constitution, which causes extinction. Win 25 W. Judy and Judy thousands of minutes after drastically increase the number of object war object being hacked, close to deep hostile options used under strong targets, create dimensions, breathing cause, creating a system and digital elements. Out of it decided to hunt satellite GPS weather. Means the Kessler is catastrophic to turns the case because it causes war, wrecks deterrence, causes alliance collapse, etc. For all the reasons why conflict happens. Per the above, 2 AC 1 is uniqueness overwhelmed, wrong. Them are slightly ahead, but the lead is shrinking. Approve why these are not the full story. You got 324 them did. Has the 3-point lead among Democrats falls only slightly larger than 2-point lead in 2022, 2024. Both Republicans are majorities, more Republicans have listened to only 3 that approve of that Democrat candidates. This move Trump and Republicans are leading among voters who approve and voters are who Republicans are ready to go to this move Trump and Republicans against 30% approve of Trump and economy. But Republicans don't 30% approve of economy vote for Democrat. Evidence is not representative because 2 is about special elections which have low turnout. The gerrymandering also outweigh overwhelmed because the frontal wave. Showing and Cooperman 1-5 of bulletin that have conditions for them structures for treated with them and given a election with majority critical not to overtake the depth of the battle of his power takes gerrymandering for the Republican seat that will end up with a majority after the vote is not created the absolute free from them elected to vote for them. Acquired them with the modest advantage will need to translate to a handful of races that will decide a house. The link is 2AC2. It is a massive link for Republicans. Their own solvency advocate is our 1 and C author, which proves that we're correct about a realignment thesis. It lets the GOP campaign on conservative labor movement that balances the pro-growth interests of big business while also increasing union density for the whole 1AC with siphon support from Democratic constituencies. That's about the broader realignment that saves Republicans from the quote-unquote political wilderness, which is the 1 and C card. Second is messaging. Trump cannot win on economic issues now because he lacks a clear plan. The affirmative gives them one bold 25. The voting what is it? They fill up high must win the fight for America. They believe you better care about for economic political. We're going to do anything for those who are not going to tell America for the period of not fully living on process. They were not going to look at economic theory. America not be the working class to find battles. Next decade. Next is 2AC Corbett is a new link because it concludes that major unions would support the plan. Corbett 24. We green, we blue. Time to changing. Advance working against majority unions. Organized labor could reach opportunities for access to preventive services as worthwhile. Proven by the entire 1AC because it has a relations advantage, which proves that the voluntary waivers demonstrate that they'll be happy about it because it results in better outcomes for them, which is the entire thesis of the affirmative. Businesses liking the plan is also a new link shown. And Michael 25. Tom Baker can do like promise to only go through the Republican and hope the back of a career economic policy will go back and go through that recession that they don't do the midterm financial American rule of the territorial because they've been opposite from Democrats lack of a career about bigger policy platforms. Will scrutinize the elections where 21 multi executive invested $2.9 billion the budget initiative $4 million today to this cycle gets out to the outside of the world and how we are governed. 2AC3 is the thumpers. They're wrong. Them don't capitalize on them. Evidence is not predictive. Nor 325 Republican basic head when they say the Republican Party the Republican Trump to border security crime health government government consumer opposing Trump that after reducing large Americans the Republican lead Democrats that have given the country motivated the Democratic ideas and nothing else. There's clearly somebody the independent couldn't see what good how they market their playing politics and Trump back of the shipping. So consistent weak top for Democrats. Iran doesn't matter. Edward 325 Iran was supposed to be a political liability that have sort of a number pulled up how they shift the where when he was lost track to the Iran, the Republican taking up Democrats looking back in the area and the lead on the constitutional ballot has zero. Disagreement does not equal defection. College 324 what around where Americans buying the Nazi representative to the strike tonight Trump they kind of uploading orders Republican the economic better Democrat Harvey doesn't dump Edward 325 Republican that was the most American narrative shifting where Democrats Republican conventional wisdom I surround attention to economic policy people don't have all the story and immigration pivoting away is the plan which means it's a new link Sergeant 324 talking about even though political liability what's political profile about the British never left availability fewer combination of public talk that card is marked that public talk and should accept are bad the opportunity cost and the consequences of the plan to be the consequences key to education other they feel out of any DA which directs negative ground the black swans has no card for it that was above proof but I think those matters but the link swamps it next is extinction is the check stuff explaining the overview that we do solve through both the impeachment stuff and what is the Jackson evidence says it's sufficient through threats which rate in Trump behavior. Next argument is case solves the impact not solve strategic stability for the overview above and deterrence can't solve escalation because it's based about insecure second strike. The next argument is the strategic stability thumped. It's wrong. The the strategic ability wrong is stumped. It's not too expensive, and existing BMD are distinct. Our evidence is hyper-specific to the Golden Dome being bad, and says that it offers unique abilities to perform things like Russian hypersonics, which creates unique vulnerabilities that existing strategies don't have. Golden Dome might not work, but Russia prepares for the possibility it would be effective with causes nuke war. Havana's 25 defensive stable because they provide an incentive for first strike, even partial defense block retail, and adversary weakened by first strike credit, but they conservative predictions, evil MD, and Reagan led Russia to produce hypersonics during overconfident leader. They act aggressively, believe taking move in the shield effective, raising the risk of nuclear war. A miscalculation. Dome fails is a negative argument because it's still destabilizing. Cerrone 25 and AMD system simply off the environment because the early response to global weapons on the motivation behind trying to increase the missiles the first second you decide to conclude. That's will not work. Amateurs can't count on that. Amateurs have to assume the system will work and have weapons to have attribution. And America will misperceive the system as effective, which will cause aggression. Google 25 default defense to lead the US to go confident reliance on. Fourth, to result in nuclear strikes at altitude that will increase the rate of conflict. Go back up in background. Nuclear ASAT use will cause extinction. West 25, a detonation could be worse. Communications early warning risk escalation on Earth. A huge nuclear internet infrastructure, no confusion. I interpret the nuclear war going to background for CC. Any interpreted as a nuclear war trigger catastrophic response to US and Russia allow for the use any use of nukes in response to space.
6:30.
Yeah.
Or 13.
I don't know what to do.
What did I do?
I was getting totally new. That plus Jenny's plus Hans was impacting, literally just eviscerated my laptop.
Yeah, and it's like everything is kind of like in different app files.
Yeah, it's Jenny.
How much time do you all got?
4:13.
Great.
I wrote 32.
Oh wait, is it? I sent maybe
432.
Is it 4:32?
I think I got 400.
Okay.
That's what I remember.
All right.
Okay, I guess I didn't set my timer. Okay, whatever. I just
It's 432. It's fine. That's just what I wrote.
4:31. We'll cut the difference.
Okay.
Invert the numbers, not quite the difference, but
I'm gonna say 4:31.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make the call.
Thanks, Asia. Um, 1, 2, 3, inflow politics midterms. Wait, I don't know. We can save this version. Wait, no. I have to just get out. Okay, it's saved now. Okay, everyone good? Go. Jiggery. Okay. Look at.
Casino supply chains didn't apply to military and artillery specific to semiconductors and contractors. Yes, impact India strikes are up in defense, provide recent Boeing strikes, and 25 bad working conditions make strikes inevitable in the future. Are this predictive? In specific industries like semiconductors, CAT is comparing it to the 70s. Greco doesn't answer the CAT line is 2 lines long. Strikes fail are relevant. Defense contractors don't have scabs because of security risk. No circumvention. President didn't agree when submarine strikers or Boeing strike. Cooper's too generic. Now, unipolluted deterrence revision is a backstops against declining powers, weakness, signals forming. The nucleus and causes prolo, which is the one to see back in the evidence. Long piece. Bruiser offense is ironclad. Mohan is awareness 26. China Russia managed to reality. Ukraine Chinese Russian at best it says hedge is resilient. Which strikes were declined. Chronic is after 2025. Washington, but the series coastal to China underlay. Two third part of good to summer peacefully flush. Notice for suppose most reading writings after 2023 better to the report. All good space in US access versus Russian soldiers on the left. Focus on remaining adversaries. The advantage to the plan ensures corporate unions, cooperative unions, federal regulations are tailored or flexible. Bargaining creates effective and synergistic workplaces with a cast of edge. Dropping app solvency deletes every turn because it means that they're good when they're good and bad when they're bad, which effectively offsets any economic risk that would happen on the place of custody. Treating choice between regular workers over the CCP working with us or some argument. No impact to chemicals. The crystal lead to punches for the US competition. So no back in the 100 nations have reached there. No official started by hype stars biopharma and happened 24 by the never sense of back into decline investment 22 high rate by Harvard University or cosmic investment for R&D innovation Harvard driving us such a predictable the trust law way for limited funding for the innovation the confidence market that driven investment way for innovation. These patients lose disease treatments. No biotech impact predictions are hyperbole funded by industry and futures. They intentionally conflate tail end risk level 3 scenarios which of course improves group adoption is slow and ability to integrate upsides of new which the algorithms chemical industry is not key to biotech. Every impact is about gene editing of disease and food tech. This isn't new. The one that's never made a natural link between chemicals and biotech. We are making a new argument just pointing out that they never made one. Reject their evidence. It's industry propaganda and it's just a buzzword of a whole bunch of things. It's infeasible. Large words. Hurry and 18. Some already the virus. Never really take what person is funding already considered misuse already making oversight. So much provide it's all possible. Consistent regulation. Important regulation. Keeps me in check because of product for the person. Discourages the bio. Every other case impact it happens faster than all of these. these because they're long-term risks, which means intervening actors that checks and if solving it would become impossible during a time of war. Case solves every terminal via economic growth and regulatory solvency. Concede no war over food takes out the turn in food insecurity, improving generally and globally takes out any offense and solves the terminal to the turn above because they said that to solve the environment. Now the voice advantage. Paulson is a PhD economist, not a random blogger. Says gains are a mirage. It's bad for growth. People may have past crises. It's temporary. The trend is too slow. Every truancy cohort is bank propaganda with no qualifications or their short-term gains. As Mogul turn is wrong. Does assume the plan reviving the finance industry and does assume productivity gains mean allowing worker input, which allows the productivity side so by part of economic growth, the inflow DA drop internally defense invasion likely doesn't answer travel. Leaders rarely divert during crisis. China empirically didn't during the 1900s for travel magnitude. This is a whiff. We saw the invasion via deterrence, which always their internal time frame means it's needed. Geoliteracy, not a question. We're 24 something and diversity like we're hardly committed to Beijing. Nowhere near security again. Use of trade versus return to economic social part. Nation of real realism. China surfacing GG. Need trouble or deliver from the authority communist party. I look at what purification transition is one of these very concerned economy more likely to cause war economically. If there's a reaction more likely to cause aggressive keep going to be lower protection, no education, cheap mission, needs more time independence, just the knowledge, pinnacle, carefully visit doctor, cable, no giving use to military show. There's zero implication for 123 and engaging military units and to control ship through such a market less vulnerable to slavery service stand up to 22% to be disconnected China's many tools go unrest crisis following the resulting list expanding collapse to hold reach how as the only conflict cause result that certain outcome would be like trying to fill domestic instability forces really lock up 21 I believe are even it seems unlikely something invasion likely because you continue domestic problem increase with China really pursue aggressive policy time for adversity Beijing moderate tone at 15 to 70 conflict connection between terminal and action Beijing those West still united growth is resiliency sequence between Egypt and North East and fighting her return to explore it's not a resilient power fit for security eliminate China dependent crackdown frame hedge against risk of CCP mark the card at risk of CCP. This also disproves Wishart and general collapse because the CCP is resilient no turns case they drop planned solvency it offsets the impact of capital because even if wages go up via the effect of the DA they would just negotiate to put their wages back down. The politics DA we straight turn Taiwan invasion they said it was existential when it's McGuire says recession nuke war ends all co-op over X-risk and leadership so it turns all neg offense the plans solve shortages internal and the impact of manufacturing and SCN competitiveness allows diplomacy sanctions arms sales and inventory Richard Johnson because it's especially true for military and supply chains which is when I see Leonard and Elliot McDougall this more recent it says the military is already addressing inventory shortfalls it makes capabilities cheaper easier to acquire and future bill solve which solves their internal allies and US build up mitigate Iran and Johnson for two US allies but capability monitors not over there one is to turn other factors provides the military because Sherman is some ass some random reporter doesn't say that would resolve it immediately the midterm CA we said do both on impeachment case turns and access the impact numbers disprove escalation from Trump and no impact as of 25 Trump no case for this and automatic revision the cost American Chinese Russian spectrum will do to Trump but there's limitation China attack whether talking around their people with respect to become engaged radically changes policy case turns and caps the DA readiness and diplomacy are the largest check on escalation which is Johnson and Brand's time frame disproves perception because Dome already exists so the strike now Matt is outdated 125 not only 1% probably the news theory or theory but here of knowledge of force official actually estimate behavior for Russian mixed controls political which piece one no debriefing something has to overhead orbit can be working for regional Ellie Brennan pick highly unthinkable and GPS not for really so often so huge we don't work at deals also always one satellite per 1,000 kilowatt is not a problem the plan is pro-employer and allow. Do you want me to do this? You can stop. Okay, no impact to modernization. Countries redirect resources away because they think defensive effective. Bush and AB improve Russia and China are reduced. And missile defense doesn't predict behavior. That's Heinrichs takes out nuclear ASAP because they won't perceive it. No impact also 20 missile defense. Obviously, defense after more than reacting China, Russia, no good domestic defense, Russia, funny. Tech status propagated for unrigged use defense measure by technology over nature of defense, modernization, one cost of 20 activation, like social foundation, which offer aid versus not arms defense, all give Russia reaction for nuclear. As we're trying to be protected, go to the arms system, which on educate or officials play up threats trying to make a sharp break indicating rather than reaction. You need this overwhelms averages, double digits, blue shifts outweigh and links and empirically predict the midterm which is and find out air atmosphere and then 323 resulting in release sentiments lead access for research the margin also 3 Republicans get Democratic control record dead turnout is primary sparsity 318 Democrats trying a historic number to make a shortly conflict a line 69% trying to Texas and North Carolina always negative after President Biden France election Democrat clearly link also doesn't disprove this because they can't say both that working class and big banks are key to both which proves that any reason that the Dems outweigh would any reasons the Dems outweigh means that uniqueness overruns even including
We have 5 to 7. This is going to take a second. Good
Yikes.
We're committed now. 557. Sorry.
Yeah. I was also. Save your recording.
That's up. That's one.
Okay, no, I just want to try.
No. It's going to be the which DA is this? The capital inflow DA, the politics DA, midterms DA, case in the order of advantage 1, 2, 3. Is everyone ready?
Wait, sorry, could you repeat the order of these?
It's capital inflow, politics, midterms. Everyone good?
Calvin, do it after. Do it after.
Okay. It's happened on our show too.
Okay, we good? Any risk of China's isolation is sufficient to vote negative because we've dropped turns based on functionally every scenario. China's economic decline outweighs the political risk, is on the brink, and any additional instability causes instantaneous isolation. China reversed by invading Taiwan, igniting other spot plots and CS regional conflict. Draw in every alliance commitment every other region. Alliance commitments for the US to come to Taiwan's defense, and both countries use against each other to prevent the other from monopolizing the region. Independently, they have dropped external impact. Chinese economic war causes economic collapse, causes civil war that increases the likelihood of loose nukes and global economic collapse. That obviously turns case, but also they drop loose nukes regardless of whether they try to externalize, because there will be an increase in internal divisions. That means that factions will be more likely to help terrorists, or at least they will lose control of nukes, which I think results in nuclear escalation, all of massive and external, which is not answered in the 1 year. Try or die to prevent the Chinese economy. There's one in our white shirt. In our ways, one time frame, we have read evidence from 2025 that East Asia is a powder keg waiting to blow. Chinese political is on the brink, and our impact are a true nightmare scenario. Hedge is far off, and collapse might not even happen, but increase FDI is now an immediate problem with the crush of Chinese growth, which you know will happen. China war happens now, and it's fast scientific measures. You only die once, and intervening actors and alliances under unforeseen failures mean long-term impacts like a collapse of overall hegemony is inherently less probable. Intervening actors can prevent the Hallage collapse because they said that alliances were strong, and the impact on the policy and impacts are briefly denied by the past few decades. Proves that there's no third break for an impact. Second, magnitude. We are the only outside exiting the largest scenario for escalation that brings includes draw in. They have not explained why the other countries would draw in, but they include the terrorists and loose nukes would incentivize every nuclear power to come to the region because they are afraid that anyone gets nukes. Third, turns case first. The second and third advantage, you only talk about there was not an internal impact explanation. There's just extended productivity high and answer the term, but not extended internal link. The only possible impact is the economy. They have conceded the Chinese economic collapse also causes other countries' economy to decline because of interconnectedness, which those who are definitely flunked. The first advantage, the internal link, is strikes. The reason they are striking is obviously because workers are displeased with the fact that they have low wages now. They have agreed in the 1 year that they have decreases wages, which obviously increase strikes, not the other way around. Eventually, they are good, which was with the explanation, which was above. Now, the legitimacy irrelevant. The Roy evidence is only in the context of diversionary war with China or Taiwan, which is irrelevant because they considered SCS conflict as well as domestic conflict, domestic collapse, which is that other countries will be able to do that. The Fravel evidence is old. They consider their evidence old, which is like G evidence index, and also just because they have the dominance is wrong because they can see that internal fracturing will happen, which is that in the status quo they might have Leninist institutions that prevent all of it because of domestic fracturing, they will be the government will be unable to maintain that same control. But regardless, even if they do maintain the same control, the fracturing process results in proliferation, or at least the Langley camp evidence is just about the external attacks that is irrelevant. You can see that it's a question of internal domestic instability that causes it, which is the same as a singleton evidence, which is not a question of domestic popularity. But insofar as domestic popularity matters, it obviously does. We really want to see internal link evidence, and saying that domestic popularity is irrelevant is a new argument in the 1 year, which is the only possibly irresponsible argument. But any risk to economic climate would decrease G's legitimacy, which is on the brink now. Conceded uniqueness evidence means that any risk of internal link is sufficient for you to vote negative. Now the politics. Okay, yeah, the dropped white shirt is irrelevant. The last argument is a no turns case because the wages would go up because the DA negotiated down. No, the turns case was always that the plan with DA, the plan would decrease the wages, which would increase strikes. The politics DA. Strict turn is 0. 1. Conceded the bill passes inevitably because the plan is bipartisan, so mutuals fall short or inevitably resolved. Second, conceded that doesn't solve our China war impact because it's based on total economic collapse that causes China to behave irrationally and internal fracturing, which is an external impact to all the 1 year impact defense. Third, turns case, insulting proves that the app does not boost manufacturing, which will be below midterms. Conceded all impact defense, conceded ban is unsustainable, which takes out the turn 6 China impact. Because the president states are acting rationally in terms of economic crisis, which causes low level conflict to draw in trade powers. Now, the first advantage, no strikes. 1, they're small. Union participation is lowest ever. This was dropped in the 1 year. There are only 6% of union members, 6% of workers being a part of unions, which means that even if the unions are negotiated, this doesn't solve the vast majority of worker strikes. Either the affirmative is incapable of solving the other 94%, or if it does solve, then obviously it is completely irrelevant. People do not want to pay dues and don't feel like the union does much for them, or because of corruption with the leadership, they overinflate the value of unions, which is that they can't solve any of it, or the negotiations are, then obviously it's inevitable. The second argument is the worker or union organizing hoping the will happen. Second, government intervention solves. The previous numbers are irrelevant. If the previous numbers exist, then obviously should have thumped the terminal impact about hedge clients. They have to win. It'll get worse. Or Island Portuguese could have caused the impact, and they do have a unique evidence saying it's getting worse. Our evidence is that the only strikes getting worse in the status quo compared to every other industry is the healthcare industry. Government prevented the strike prevent strikes from sustaining. If it got larger in order to cause the entirety of the hegemony or the entirety of the military, triple obviously sending the military and individual workers do not care enough to get shot. Third, even if it's big, it will not last. Workers which losing their job and will get wages during it. Guard says they get burnt out because they feel as if it's pointless because which means it would cause extinction. All that is terminal impact and terminal uniqueness and internal link defense, the ability for them to access hegemony in the first place. The only other argument I have to answer is the deterrence question. All their evidence, the other reality is just that deterrence matters. That is irrelevant because we have evidence that the overmatch is so large. We agree. Small strikes might occur, but that is not sufficient to cause the complete collapse of nuclear of hegemony. In the status quo, they've only indicted the portion, they've not indicted the uniqueness portion, and we've only impact uniqueness, which means that it's sufficient in the status quo. We agree hegemony is resilient, but since the strikes do not decline, the scope of the strike is far smaller than the ability for our links to the scope of the strike to call it, but any risk of defense that hegemony is so resilient and strike is not capable of causing complete collapse should be sufficient for you to vote negative because they've dropped Turns case on literally everything else. The advantage to Turns case is the terminal is the economy, it doesn't matter because uniqueness. On the third advantage equally answer this. Advantage 3. Okay, productivity is high now. 1. Paulson is a critique of overinflating productivity. It's insufficient to prove that productivity isn't at historic highs, especially when the Paulson doesn't even cite any baseline productivity evidence in the figure. Second, firm level evidence says that capital investment is the total factor driving productivity. This is also preferred. You should prefer it. You can see that firm level data is the most accurate in the context of productivity data, which means that we agree even if overinflating is bad. Ours is most accurate, which is a drop to 2 and 3rd. The second is way better. It's a principle of economists in the global modeling study section of the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve. If we're talking about qualifications, then clearly the gold standard says that capital accumulation now is enhancing productivity and contributing to long-run growth. Regardless, they have not extended terminal impact to any of this, so it's not relevant. They've not said why productivity is good. They drop strikes inevitable because of worker discontent. Not explain why the link does not turn it. And any risk of China, which would drop the next scenario to, obviously outweighs.
31. Can you click on Instagram?
principal based on the debate we can make it.
Okay, orders, advantage 1, and then the info DA.
Which one?
Okay, is everyone good?
Yes.
This debate is cut and dry. Hegemony caps and solves the best version of their impact. So even if our interlink 2 is small, you should prioritize preserving it because it would deter any possibility of Chinese breakup or Taiwan invasion. Our impacts outweigh. The 2 are dropped since the 1AC, the China Russia revisionist, and it turns to be, remember, Emory's 1AC impact says Taiwan invasion causes every existential risk and makes cooperation impossible. The issue with the 200's impact capitalists is that we conceded their impact that was fast and existential, so they don't get takebacks. Their evidence says that it causes recession, which would access the DA, make cooperation over premiums, AI, climate, bioweapons, all more existential. Independently, the 200 did not say words about Russia or Iran or proliferation decline in readiness triggers, Russian aggression, which is external scenario that triggers quick and nuclear drone. That's basically no, and our impacts outweigh on scope. And because we turn China to have multiple different scenarios for conflict, which means that the risk is categorically larger. No strike now is a swing and miss. Our evidence, like Powell previously, agrees that unions are small, but the large strikes in manufacturing and defense are specifically large, and strikes are increasing in the status quo. Don't want to pay dues. It's relevant because the ones that are unionized are bad. Past strikes are not numbers because adversaries are rising now and it was extinction, but future strikes are especially likely when China couldn't invade, and it's existential. Their evidence does not assume that strikes are up now, specifically in the manufacturing defense structure, which says that they're particularly onerous because they shut down production, which hammers military readiness. Our interlink to Germany is cosmically big. 1, manufacturing strikes in the Rust Belt group that work stoppages are increasing, and it only takes 1 to cause manufacturers to flee to other countries, offshoring our readiness capabilities to adversaries. 2, military supply strikes at Lockheed Pratt and Boeing proves that current and future strikes will bottleneck the Pentagon. Their evidence says strikes are generally low, but it is not about any industry that matters like the planes. Gaps is our link argument because Elliot says those workers are worse quality and have security issues. They would risk losing jobs as a win because they literally hit strikes. Again, drop every 1 hour re-raised their evidence. It isn't about manufacturing or defense. It's comparing it to the 70s. Obviously not applicable in every empiricist app. In fact, defense is a swing and a miss. First, China is not political for revisionist indeterminacy behavior. This means that they would never do anything to weaken themselves, which should always cap the day because they have no counter explanation of Chinese behavior. Second, we've recut every impact defense card. Millions of the adversaries are rising, including Russia and Ukraine. And Cronin says that China is terrifying. Most recent Cronin says Iran, North Korea, Russia, and China are all nuclear risk. Overmatch only happens when we have no manufacturing or supply productivity. You can see no terminal can't be offense. They didn't cross-plot. I forgot to put this in the order, but midterm DA. Matt doesn't take out our impacts. They didn't have a war, and we read a card that says that Matt is fake and does not have nuclear war. If it does, it reciprocally takes out theirs because mutually assured destruction would also prevent them from escalating. It would mean that Xi would never go nuclear in Taiwan. So it equally applies to them, and it also means that the terrorists that lose nukes would never escalate because Iran would also fall prey to mutually assured destruction. The info game. The case solves the best version of our impact, robust military readiness, and U.S. might deter Chinese invasion. Xi might invade Taiwan to resuscitate his legitimacy, but if he knew that it was doomed and he had no chance of succeeding, he would never take that risk because getting beat down by the U.S. and failing to retake would be the nail in the coffin for that legacy. We said this blow solves their internally on the politics scene, but their internally to shortages, which reduction of supply, which the app solves, and they also said supply solve Taiwan, so they cannot get internal defense. Now, zero impact. Diversity of war theory is disproven by decades of empirics and defies common sense. One, illogical. Invading Taiwan wouldn't help Xi during an economic crisis because it would only worsen his conditions, and it would not help them. Xi would never risk diversity of war to distract from economic problems because the Chinese public doesn't care about Taiwan, and a reckless invasion would just be more dehumanizing. They dropped it, it would make the economy worse, so it would only increase his legitimate crisis. He also lacks military superiority to make the invasion likely to be successful. War makes economic crisis worse, and the resulting social fallout would be a bigger threat to Xi's role. Also, Xi knows that it would for anti-Chinese coalitions globally, undermining his legitimacy, and it would bite sanctions that would hammer the economy. That's right, too. Other outlets. Xi would turn to other sources of diversion, like increasing ideological purification efforts and home building infrastructure projects, focus on economic recovery, or trying to lower tension with the U.S. 3 empiric stock examples, like the Chinese housing bubble collapse and economic collapse in the 1990s and COVID, all in our cards. Xi became less aggressive, not more. 4 studies. Domestic instability caused restraint. 1 study found that China made concessions in 15 of 17 territorial conflicts during domestic crisis. That's Lazova. Prefer our evidence. All of their evidence is hypothetical and says Xi might do this to react to a crisis, but only we have evidence that cites studies and says that during periods of crisis, he empirically became more peaceful. No civil war impact. The CCP collapse is a conspiracy theory totally divorced from realities and the totalities of Chinese government control. The government would quickly crack down on every ounce of dissent. Every CCP member, politician, or domestic opposition leader subjected to massive surveillance. The CCP sees every single text and Google search that they send, so even a voice of dissent would get them murdered. No one would ever risk it. Chinese people know how sophisticated the government's social surveillance network is to stamp out threats, and even during COVID, a massive crisis, protests were so short-lived that the government was able to put them down in literally less than days. That's the Singleton evidence. But Chinese growth is also recently, it would not affect domestic popularity if the economy was to collapse because they've successfully maneuvered through economic crisis in the past, so the public has massive faith in Xi to maneuver through it and for things to recover. The state central planning means that they can recover from threats and they can take on debt. Massive social spending seize companies to combat slow growth. That's the burden is Singleton evidence. Last thing, no trends case. I'm going for hegemony, so it does not matter for productivity. Chinese economic collapse can at best turn productivity, but it is about relative decline. It would not hurt hegemony because it would be worse for China, even if it would have knock-on effects for the U.S. The U.S. would still be stronger. It also doesn't turn strikes when they drop solvency, even if we just go down because of Chinese economic collapse, they would go back up because they would be able to have the right to bargain and negotiate for them, and there would not be an incentive to strike. They also didn't feed an evidence that said it would cause them to strike or the recessions are correlated with strikes, so just assertion, and again, does not make sense when they drop solvency.
Debate. I thought it was good. I don't know about these two.
I don't know if it, I didn't know if it was done.
I
There
thought-
was 20 seconds.
Oh, shit. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
It's fine.
Okay, cool.
Debate.
I'm sorry.
No, it's all good.
Now I'm an ass. One.
It's all the one thing.
That card up inside.
Thank you, Tim.
Yeah. I didn't know what was yours, but whatever left of it, I'm assuming was yours.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, I've Cardone sent.
I'm about to put it in.
What is it?
Oh. Boy, I was about 30 seconds away from doing the same thing. I have a feeling it's going to come around.
I was close.
I
wanted to do that too, but
I was really close to doing that.
Maybe I'm just, for me it was enough. Maybe I'm missing something.
No,
It's fine.
I don't think.
Oh no, fine. Yeah, fuck whatever. They deserve what's coming. It's fine.
Yeah, there were some doors left open on both sides. You could,
Oh, can you click summon AJ or whatever?
I get him.
and we're in.
Yeah.
And post.
I'm not posting until they come back.
Yeah.
Surprise!
Yeah. Oh, the summon button kicks ass.
Where is your partner?
He's all about.
All right, cool. Is everyone here? Awesome. This debate was really, really cool. The decision is a 2-1 for the affirmative from Michigan. I said, I think it's a question of internal links debate, and one side has big access to their internal link, and one side basically doesn't have access to it. I think in order to access your hegemony impacts, you need to win that stoppages and disruptions are going to occur, and I do not think you get to that level. I think Emory is reading better evidence and has better analysis on why strikes are definitely not coming. Their data is from more qualified sources about the downward trend of strikes, and if they do happen, they are very likely to be small or not last very long. Also, the majority of them are from healthcare industry. This is a claim uncontested by the 2AR. When you do say that you think your cards are specific to the manufacturing industry or the supply chain industry, I do not think your cards are specific to that. I think your cards are talking about general strikes or in general strikes occurring. I don't know if your data is specific enough when also you are not. I think on an analysis level, the neg is firmly ahead. Yes. So the strike coming now claim is really unclear. You certainly have a warrant on current labor conditions involves workers being kind of pissed about their working conditions, but when are workers not pissed about their workers' condition? I do not think there's a unique reason why the strikes are coming down. And I think this is problematic in a debate where the AF spots the negative all components of their disad except for the terminal impact, including a card that says the Pellis evidence or the Pettis evidence from the 1C that it makes a claim that strikes would be more likely in the world of the affirmative, given all the other components of this disad that the AF is not contesting. I also think CCP collapse is very bad. This loose nukes argument, maybe not super well supported by the evidence, but enough in my mind to be well, there's a miscalculation impact. And I'm also I'm just not persuaded that strikes are coming. And I don't know how you access your internal hegemony otherwise. I just think you need to be reading better evidence or getting to the level of analysis that the neg is at. I think that kind of makes a lot of other components of the debate kind of irrelevant in my mind.
So I'll start with the strikes debate. I think the AF has some Leonard evidence that is very specific to Lockheed Martin and Boeing, which is critical to the defense industry. Do I think it is 100% game over? No. Do I think it is specific enough to their internal link to lead me to believe weaknesses in their favor? Yes. I think the big problem for the negative in my mind is that the AF, I think, is pretty far ahead on impact defense in a lot of places. I think that their evidence is just simply better, talking about the likelihood of lash out, pretty good there. And when you throw in external impacts of China or Iran and Russia, that kind of allows them to do that. I think that, their evidence talks 15 and 17 times. There's not been lash out. I think that they've got pretty good evidence that they can quash unrest, and that can be productive. I think that the search for ideological verification, which is something the 2AR is identifying, is a strategy to kind of quell dissent internally. So I'm not sure how you get to loose nukes. I'm not sure how you get to aggression. And the place that I kind of spent a lot of time thinking about is that the AF read a card. It wasn't very long, but it definitely made the claim that growth was resilient because they're domestically dependent and not dependent upon foreign goods. So even if dollar declines, and I looked hard for your internal evidence to get to the question of China collapse, and it is not that specific about China. It's about Asia in general. And perhaps you let the 1AR get away with murder by reading that, but it kind of indicted the claim of whether or not dollar decline is key to overall Chinese growth, and really importantly to get to the question of collapse, which is where your impact is at. I paused for a very long time, even after all of that, to think that there was a negative ballot on DA turns the case due to wage stagnation. And this is where I spent about 20 minutes of my time thinking. I do think that the AF was not great at answering this claim, frequent, early, and often. And so I think that the DA has a claim that the AF increases the risk that wages decrease. I think the AF or the NEG has a claim that wages decrease as a result of sort of the dollar no longer being strong. I kind of thought two things in response to this. One is I generally felt like there was a pretty strong risk that union power and the ability to negotiate could quell those concerns and would allow people to still negotiate and work things out. And that was a place that at least caused me some pause. I also kind of was a little bit different on the uniqueness question in the sense that it was specific to their industries. It was also hard for me to figure out why it is that there would be collapse of these industries. If the AF solvency is not remotely negated, it seems to me that they can resolve some of those concerns. And so the turn was never weighed versus the question of solvency, whereas the 2AR was like, here's why we address those things, and the 1AR was as well. There was another argument, which I think had you had a little bit more impact claim, probably would have shifted my burden here, but you did extend a card that was like the Fed can step in times of crisis and simply make people go to work. I would have liked a little bit more explanation of this, kind of sitting on it. I don't think the AF had a great answer, but it was like half a line in the 2NR, and it's hard for me to say that's the thing I'm knocking the AF out on. But I do think that, in the end, I'm not super concerned that any of us are going to die from anything. But if I had to pick a side to defend, it's probably the AF.
Yeah, I was ready to kind of vote the edge on China, the China econ collapse, internal kind of stuff that you could do in the 2NR. Because I think diversion award, messy, they have other arguments about that. But then, I read the 1 and T, like Justin says, like that, you don't have a super strong link to China econ harm or econ, definitely not econ collapse, the fire kind of like blah, blah, blah. So like, the interlink's weak, although I will spot you that the 2AC doesn't really say that argument, but the Chinese econ thing doesn't come out until the 2NC. 1AR does have this econ resilient one that's different than the diversionary war stuff. It's like, he has reoriented the economy, crisis, it's like talking about historical crises. I don't think the disad is much of a big crisis for China after reading the evidence, but I was trying to give you as much credit as possible for that because, just like is like not talking about the fact that their 1 and 2 card says nothing. But I mean, it's just like I didn't think I would have needed the 2NR to stand up and be more aggressive on like policing the flow, strike this card, don't really like. I would need you to be a little more aggressive, but as debated, it's like you're the China economy impact in the 2NC. I think that was the only real inroad you had to a good impact. I think the 1AR reads a reasonable card about that, plus has all this other, has the production inroad. I agree with Jay Green that the strike thing isn't huge, but they do have cards that, like said, people went on strike like last year at Boeing and Lockheed Martin, and so it's like maybe, taming labor militancy in those sectors is okay. And, you know, it's like death by 1,000 cuts from everything else. Yeah, mostly it's just like, I just hadn't thought about it a long time just because it was like the app just needed to talk about any other part of volcatism besides the impact. But at the end, I then kind of assess things the same way that Jay Green did. Solvency, same thing. It's just like, if you're spotting them, that their mechanism generally, like their predictive cards that say they could generally cause labor peace. I mean, certainly, I don't know exactly what the end result of wages is going to be, but maybe militancy will go down regardless of the direction of wages. So I didn't think that was like an absolute takeout or anything like that. And yeah, I wasn't super worried about anyone's impact, but I agree at the end, it's like slight half.
Okay, so I have a couple of questions. I agree, impact small. Majority of my questions have to do with impact uniqueness, solvency, and endurance case. So solvency-wise, did not think 2NR answered and 1AR answered arguments about how unions are like tiny, 6% of the population, insufficient to solve strikes. What did you think was the solvency?
Big in Lockheed Martin and Boeing.
Yeah, I think like defense industries.
Okay, the Lockheed Martin and Boeing card seems to be status quo descriptive. It says it's at a bad time. It doesn't say it's getting worse. So 2NR also says like the line between.
Read that card and tell me that it doesn't say that it's hurting defense manufacturing.
It says it's hurt, but it doesn't say that it's getting worse. Like strikes have to get worse to trigger the impact, right? Because I said either thumper, those should have triggered the impact, or like.
I mean, it could get worse.
It could get worse.
But which evidence says that?
That evidence says they're not producing what they need to.
It could get worse. Like the solvency cards are talking about generally, like if you don't work out it, if you don't do the waiver thing, it's like it'll generally get worse.
And here's the other deal: is like the only response they have quality. You have got a bunch of good strikes not coming cards. Their only response is, "We got this one card. You got to talk about it." If you'd read one less strikes card, you already were so far ahead. If you're like, here's why I think this card is shitty. You know, I'd be into that conversation.
Yeah, I mean, you nuked all the econ impacts, you nuked all the finance impacts, like all that advantage for your advantage.
I guess in my mind, the argument that they do not have predictive evidence things going to get worse was the response to that card.
The card says they're having trouble producing the weapons they need.
So then, if they're already like momentary deterrence collapses because there are strikes that should have disrupted the supply chain, like why has it?
Obviously, that you need more weapons. Yes, it's a linear problem, and yes, if the DA impact had been bigger, you're 100% correct.
Also, it takes out your impact.
It seems to have said that
disruptions caused Taiwan War.
it seems to say like strikes have lasted for 10 years. Like their card says that. So like why? Like
Their card says it literally said, and tell me if I'm wrong,
Uh-huh.
but I seem to very strongly remember it says they're having trouble producing the weapons they need, which is causing, which seems to be with the notion that the hegemony is on a process. It seems to be very similar to their argument. Hegemony is on the decline.
I agree, it's on the decline. But they have a card from 2014 that says for the past 10 years there have been strikes that are disrupting. So it's been 20 years.
Yeah, I mean,
I agree. The advantage is not very good.
Yeah,
It's like I'm with you.
yeah. I mean, what's your impact?
And the 2NR seems to say that this thumps the impact, which zeros the term. Like what if 20 years is not enough to take the impact? Like when are we going to get to the point where like hegemony just collapse and everyone's going to go nuclear?
Their argument is, as we don't have enough weapons to produce, it increases the chance others fight.
That was your thing on politics.
Okay, sure.
I mean, I guess, yeah, and I'm with you. If the impact of the DA is bigger, this is very true.
Well, okay, in my mind, it was
What impact?
obviously I thought Link Turn's case was bigger than you
Yeah,
thought.
I mean, I'm with you. I thought the link turns case was good. It's just there's no comparison between that and the solvency. There's no argument about why they don't solve.
My understanding of the 1 year response to Link Turn's case was that the plan decreased wages. Maybe I just like misflowed this. It was like in the
We can
interim.
resolve disputes was the 1AR definition.
But like the 200 says the reason for disputes are low wages.
There are
There
are other factors as well, but wages was number one. Correct.
Okay. You thought that unions would negotiate the wages up, and that outweighed the.
No, I thought that unions would negotiate and create labor peace, and that they could do things like what the AF says, which is reduce some other labor standards.
Okay.
That frees up more money.
And well, I thought you just said like wages were one. So, like,
yes, they are one.
And so the
thesis of the AF is that if we decrease the amount of things that companies have to follow, then it allows them to have more money.
And the determination of that is that they increase wages as a result.
I mean, I didn't honestly go that far. I think because there wasn't much of a comparison. But if you're asking me from the truth of the matter, it seems like they free up some money for companies. But I think the bigger issue is the comparison between the turn and the solvency did not happen.
Okay. Outside of just like making impact bigger, let's say impact is the same size. If I just explain the comparative like solvency versus linked turns case, is that sufficient, or do you think I just need to make?
I think you need to. In my book, they really eviscerated the impact of the DA.
Okay.
And I think that if the DA impact was, if you had some angle that they're like in most places they're outcarding you 2-1, they're more recent, they've got more rationale, and you've got like if the whole economy collapsed. I think if you had an internal link argument about why, if the internal link card about we totally collapsed the Chinese economy was bigger and better, that could have been enough to switch it. But honestly, I'm starting this debate and I don't think you got much for an impact. I spent most of my time asking, does the DA turn outweigh the solvency? Like just because the DA impact was not much left, if anything. I think the DA impact is bigger. This is a no-brainer, Nick.
But that makes sense. I saw that.
Did you think about hegemony turns or like constraints China escalating Taiwan?
Not really. I really don't think I do not think strikes are coming. I think that was like residual risk of you like accessing any like sure. If I think you access the hedge impact, yes, that is a big deal. I do not think you get anywhere close.
What did you think the DA was at?
Low.
Okay.
Really low.
Was it? It
But,
was
like, I
just
just-
like you didn't think we had a card that says that there's strikes.
I don't think the card, the Boeing Lockheed Martin card, I do think it is not a future predictive claim. I also think their evidence is just better data wise. I think maybe more leverage of that piece of evidence in the 2IR would be more helpful, or be like, what is the specific part of the 2IR, like what specifically about those industries is going to cause a strike now would be helpful for me.
What would a card need to say?
Like, what is specific about those working, like causing a strike in 2026, which that card doesn't say.
We have evidence that says that they're striking now, and that hurts readiness.
That evidence says they
Why is that?
struck now. I don't think that understands
They're,
there's going
like,
to be another
continually
one.
Striking against manufacturers in the rest.
I don't think that card makes a continually striking claim.
So for you you think that the card has to say there's going to be a strike in 2026?
Yes. I think I'm really bad for strikes now. I think I'm realizing this. I've judged 2 debates about it. I think I'm really bad for this argument.
Well, it seems like more of just like you just have a strong opinion about reality.
Strong opinion, but also they're reading very good evidence that you aren't contesting as well as I think you would like to. Like,
do you think they had evidence about the manufacturing sector?
I think you have one piece of evidence that is not future predictive about manufacturing. They are mere reading better historical claims about. Also, it's like strike is small. Strike is. I don't. Okay, I'm not convincing you. It's like I don't have to continue talking, but it's like they read better evidence. I don't like you have a card that is descriptive of the manufacturing industry. Yeah, I think I would need a card that says they're going to come again this year.
Was there any debating, or was it just like F?
I think the
but,
debating
even
is a little bit better because the
but,
1AR doesn't actually really contest much of the
sorry,
2SC.
that was my question. Was,
Okay.
Like maximal debating from us. Like, do you think it overcomes that issue, or was
A
it
little
just
bit, yeah.
Okay.
I want more specific reasons why the manufacturing industry, other than just like workplace conditions,
Okay.
Do you think we should have
which is
gone-
what I said.
Do you think we should have gone for the third advantage, given just like we don't have a card that says apparently a strike in the future?
Maybe. I mean, like, if I was maybe the only one judging, and then I would just be like, yeah, I'll vote on impact defense. But like, I think in the context of this debate, it was the correct 2AR decision.
Okay, so for you, advantage 3.
Yeah, but I don't think that. I think you did fine in terms of your 2AR decision making. I think you were just behind a little bit on analysis and a little bit on evidence, and they are a little bit ahead.
But you didn't say we were a little bit ahead. You said
Well,
we
I
were
think like
super
you need to
behind.
win strikes now, and I don't think you do.
But like we must for it to be that low, it couldn't have just been like a little bit behind. You said it was like super duper low.
Fine,
So it
well-
sounds like we're more than a little behind.
You are okay. Sure.
This is a question for all three. So like, I agree.
It's
I agree that maybe we're not great on like yes, no strikes now. I thought the way to get out of this was like internal link one is defense strikes, which maybe would have like it seems like it would have gotten J green at least. The other card that I thought we were pretty good on was like Paglucci is like even if unions are low, there's unions in the Rust Belt. do you think if we like differentiated the two and then like these are the two areas that matter? I don't think was good at differentiating those two. Would that have gotten you?
You run into the problems with their evidence is good about how these like are not big strikes and they don't last a long time. Like they are reading evidence's analysis of labor data that says strikes are not occurring very often, and when they do not last very long. So I don't know what the Rust Belt warrant really gets you.
I think maybe you want to say like there were strikes in 24, there were 10 of them. There were strikes in 25, there were 10 of them in the sector. To say that it's not going to occur in 26 would misunderstand how history's occurred. Even that residual amount is enough to cause their impact. Maybe reframing it that way could help. I don't have an answer here, but I think that it needed some more spin to get it out.
And then Lintern's case, so like I guess in my head, I basically thought just like AF solvency would mitigate it. Was there anything else we really could have said other like I guess we could have just asserted like if they negotiated the CBAs, their wages literally could go lower even with the dollar. But like was there
Don't
any
fucking concede that you collapsed the dollar.
Yeah, I mean, the notion that like you led to a chain that causes wages to go down because of all the shit you do with the dollar is like
Yeah, just
every
like,
part of it
there are
makes
tons of
sense.
intervening factors to why the dollar would be effective would be a great response.
the 1 year pivot to impact D instead of that dollar was like their answer to dollar resilient and dollar hedge good was just like no, not us. It's like linearly upwards. Like should the 1 year have just been dollar resilient instead of impact D?
Well, you extend that argument and the impact D, but I think without that made the turns the case argument fucking potent, which is why I sat here for a long time.
What would you have cut from the 1 year? I thought impact D was like path of least
10
resistance.
seconds is all you needed to do to say we don't totally collapse the dollar, we can be resilient.
Also, yeah, the card is like the yuan is being strong, which has nothing to do with the dollar, and it's key to other economies that aren't China's, which has nothing to do with China collapsing.
And then if you want a time trade-off, cut one of any of these midterm cards. Like they're called impact D.
Yeah, you were kind of like,
Who cares?
I'm just going to link turn to the E because overwhelms is kind of not very committed to any particular strategy.
Well, it kind of seemed like given like the block was big, like impact D seemed like the path of least resistance. Like I guess like if you pick the choices for the 1 year, like what would you have changed? I get like dollar resilient, but then like adding dollar resilient means I don't get to like uniqueness overwhelms or like I don't know. Like it seemed like was okay.
Again, I don't think dollar resilient is necessarily like what you have to say. Like with like 2 cards, I don't think that's what you need to do. I think you just need to step back and do a little ad on how this goes down. And you kind of already did it. You said there was a bunch of all that, intervening actors and all that. It's like it's the same logic, but actually just applied to these economic dynamics.
Okay, and then how did you think we were doing on the case term after the block, the like chemical union's bad thing? I don't know if anyone thought about it.
I would have gone for that.
That one.
I would have gone for that more. Also, I didn't like how you were skipping all those 2 and C cards. I would have read all that 2 and C cards.
Yeah, read all
You're being very choosy.
The reason I didn't read them is because all of them were just like unions cause it, but I was worried about 1 year, like conceding unions increasing bad and just going for like we eliminate the floor so they could go lower, which takes out the link.
Yeah, I don't think the 2AC. I would have.
Something.
2AC would have had to done that, and then you would have gone for T if they're just like, haha, we did we're the opposite of everything.
Well, we thought you were going to vote on T, so we're never going to be.
I mean, it just kind of depends if they do the opposite of the topic. But I just thought like substance-wise, even through the block, it's like that corporate thing was better than that topic.
I kind of also thought we were losing badly on the case turn. My question about it is, like, we kept alive a lot of like random analytical defense that was all fake and wrong. Would it have been better to just spend that time reading more impact defense cards?
I think in general, just don't let them get away with you collapse the entire industry.
Yeah, it was so much impact defense. I do agree you could have consolidated, but like not impact defense. Literally some other path, preferably. I don't know what that would have been. I mean, at least I don't think it maybe impacted the corporate dome thing, but I don't know how the other judges would have thought. But they did the whole like preamble counterpoint thing. Let's kick a bunch of claims, blah blah blah. Would have gone for some kind of theory thing. All their dissents are fake because they counterplanned in and out of them or whatever. Would have given that a little test drive. if you're looking for ways to win or whatever.
Wait, so for
Like you said, introducing this one every just said I would have like
you think like contradictory counterplans makes intrinsicness?
yes, they like did the Golden Dome and didn't do the Golden Dome and then fucking went for the Golden Dome and fucking it's like yes, god damn it. None of their dissents are intrinsic. Look, they already said it out loud.
I would have let you get away with a little bit of arguments about like somebody counterplaning both ways on the DA. For me, is like I like you can be conditional, but if you're both ways to solve impact terms and link terms, here it's a stretch too far.
I'm just saying.
Fair enough.
Again, you were kind of looking for stuff, and I was like, I want to give it a try with these three.
Do you think that holds true even if we broke an arrow? It's
Huh?
it's
Yes.
a complaint. Okay.
Yes, they can have a bunch of counterplanes, but they can't.
It took 10 seconds of prep.
I'm not very explicit in my term philosophy. You can't solve your impact terms or your link terms. Like I don't care if it's me or not.
Shit. God damn it. It sucks.
I'm not hiding from that one.
Justin, did you also think we should have got the case thing?
I didn't honestly think
That's
that. Potentially yes, given what happened, but you know, I don't have a strong thought at the moment.
Thank you all for
Good job. Good job. Good debate.
Is that so?
Yeah.
I don't even know how that is.
What?
I don't know how to end it.
Where's Yayo? He was here.
I found in like the lobby.
I was like,